Go ahead.
But
Robot
yes,
roll call.
That's right. Robot roll call. It is 3 homos and a pussy. Slightly different setup than 3 homos. Well, actually, we do have 3 homos. We just have an extra person who will introduce himself in a second here. But starting from the left is Tennyson.
Yo, what up?
And what is your kin sona? Is that what it's called? Kin?
Your
What do you kin as?
My kin is John Fitzgerald Kennedy, 35th President of the United States.
Neat.
Ooh.
All right, Ray, you're up.
Hello. I was here for the zoo video. I was one of the furries. I screamed a lot.
And you're not a homo.
I am not. I am super straight. Sorry to break any of the lovely boys in the chat's dreams.
I can still fantasize. You can't do anything about it.
I mean, I can't, and I'm also not going to get upset if you do.
Ooh.
Just be slightly flattered now. All right, Gemini.
Hello, I am Gemini. You've probably seen me in. I think the last time I was on here was actually the vid with the Pride vid. So it's been a minute.
I think it was
That's
Gay
good.
Disney. Was it Gay Disney?
No,
It may have
was I?
been
I don't think I
You
was
might have
on
been
for the
there
Gay
for
Disney.
one of the halves, but
Yeah.
can't remember.
Yeah, I was on for one of the halves of Gay Disney. I just wasn't on for the entirety of the Gay Disney stuff.
All right, cool. Danimal.
Hey, I'm a nobody. I don't know why anybody likes me.
Because your sexy voice.
Well,
Obviously.
oh, yeah. It's very sexy.
ASMR channel when?
Right now, if you want
What's
I'm
the
good.
safe word? What's the safe word?
it. There is no safe word here.
No!
There's no safety.
I lied. I did just yell. Whole thing ruined.
All right,
You
and then
failed
me,
already. Incredible.
Yeah. And then me to the right, this is channel owner Kava. Hello, I'm the one pussy currently. Well, Tennyson's kind of a pussy, but just in a slightly different fashion. Well, here we are. Perhaps we are ready to get started?
Yeah.
Is everybody that's going to be here here?
Man.
Yeah, we'll do it. Just tweak Danimal's picture a little tiny bit. There we go.
Just lower me out of frame.
Okay.
Just delete me.
Just delete Danimal. Bye, Danimal.
Uh,
So here we are again, and we have we've mixed up the team a bit. We have, in the past few videos, covered a couple topics, including zoo files, which was plenty of fun. And then the other time, this last show, we covered our gender, our pronouns. But, this topic, I think, kind of blends some of these elements together in a interesting way. Because today we're talking about Otherkin and how they process gender, I suppose.
Now, for those in the audience who are blissfully unaware of what Otherkin are, they're a tale on the internet almost as old as the internet itself. Probably older, but before the internet we had the good fortune not to know about them. In short terms, an Otherkin is somebody who identifies themselves as connected on some mental or psychological or even spiritual level to some species of wild animal. It's a bit like that whole concept of spirit animals, but very much removed from its Native American and shamanistic heritage, and instead just a really weird, creepy phenomenon that is very prominent among furries and among... actually, it's not just a furry thing. One of the earliest Otherkin examples was the Final Fantasy house, if any of you are old enough to recall that story from back in the 2000s, where a bunch of people basically coerced a bunch of lonely people on LiveJournal into role-playing as Final Fantasy characters in this shitty apartment that they got.
What? How do I not know the story?
It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
I remember that story. That was on. That was The Final Fantasy house, that was on Down the Rabbit Hole, wasn't it?
Indeed, it was. Yeah.
Oh boy. I mean, I know when I was on LiveJournal many eons ago, I remember Otherkin. It's important to note too, they also do fictional creatures, including sort of supernatural beings. So there are Otherkin that identify as demons or angels or dragons are very popular. So it can be far beyond wild animals too.
Oh, for sure.
And that's where they definitely split from furries.
Zombies.
Because furries, I know there are furries that have personas that are dragons or whatever, but the Otherkin seem especially drawn to fictional creatures.
You know, you never see anybody who identifies as a normal motherfucking human being. Like, videos about being fucking insane.
No, I'm a Jeff
Curious.
Bridges Ken.
I have a human sona.
I think one of the first times outside of the furry community I got a taste of somebody, and this was ironically speaking, using the Otherkin kind of lingo, was Armored Skeptic when he had a stream way back in the day with Shoe on Head and Sargon of Akkad, celebrating his 100,000 subscribers. He described himself as Metalkin.
Nice.
I mean, it's more of just pointless trivia, but
He's a very mentally stable individual.
Okay. To be clear, he was being ironic when he said it. It was a joke.
I'm sure it was.
Seems like a joke, but that is also something that some Otherkin identify as. Having researched the Otherkin wiki, there are such things as a concept kin, where you can kin along a concept such as fire or water. Don't ask me what that means. I don't know.
Can I just call myself genocide kin then?
Oh my god!
And after what I want to do,
you can be Hitler kin.
I might after today.
Hitler kin, kawaii.
Are we banned off of YouTube for that?
Hopefully.
Possibly. We'll see.
I hope and pray.
Look, if you gotta censor me, I'm fine. I've realized I might be pushing
I'm
the
the one who said it, so. And let's dive in. I'm gonna put away this lovely bee picture that I have.
What's this video from? It's Othercon? Is it like a convention
so
that
about
they hold
a
yearly?
month there. I don't know how many years it's been going, if any, but a month ago, a bunch of videos were uploaded to this channel called Othercon. It appears to be a Discord convention where they use the panel function to host a bunch of panels. And so there's a bunch of these videos, but this one, of course, the title, you just can't beat the title. My gender is dog.
My gender is dog.
So we're going to dive in and see what they have to say about Otherkin and gender and how those two things relate to each other, allegedly.
Oh, I can't wait. I seriously...
Some of you have not seen any of this. Some of you have seen all of it. So we'll have a variety of reactions.
According to a quick look on the furry wiki, this is a fairly new con, apparently. It's only got one recorded year.
Wow, so this is the first year. Hey, mazel tov.
And apparently the next one is August 13th to 15th.
Maybe we should go.
I'll be there for it.
Yeah.
It is all. They're claiming that it's all virtual, so
you can go.
I'm good. I have better things to do with my life.
I agree. I
don't know. I think you're all going to be persuaded by the end of this.
I think you're
right. The purpose of this convention is to provide a space where people within and outside of the community. Oh, okay. I thought they were going to say that you could literally go outside and mingle with people at the convention. I'm like, how do you do that at a virtual con?
You got to bring a lot of Febreze with you. I think there's probably going to be a lot of BO.
That would be, yes. Some holy water, a crucifix or two.
Just gonna throw it out there. A lot of people suffering from dysphoria, if it's true, typically aren't heavy on the bathing.
I just want to say too, like, I don't want to really be mean to these people. I think they're fine for the most part. I just think they're delusional.
We'll see what they say about guiding people along to healthy therapy or not.
We'll try to critique ideas, maybe. But there are some interesting anecdotes along the way.
Welcome to the panel. I'm Cinn, and
I'm Pete.
And just to know a little bit about us, do you want me to start, Pete, or do you want to introduce us? Or
you can start, yeah.
So, oh no, only 50 viewers. Okay, so we should have sourced this art. Pete, will you grab the art source?
51 more than they deserve, honestly.
Only 50 viewers. Oh, that's actually pretty good. Actually, that's a pretty good number for Otherkin.
Yeah, I was barely getting anybody on Omegle.
For a virtual con that takes place on Discord, that means of the people who are in the chat, 51 of them tuned into that. And she sounds disappointed, and I think that's because there was more actual people in the chat room itself than 51.
Sure, but 50 people listening to you live is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, imagine
No.
you...
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Like, that's impressive. I'm more concerned that there was apparently more than 51 people apparently audio tuning into this.
That is, I wonder how many people are in the Discord in general.
How many of them are, not registered sex offenders that are in the Discord? That's the better question.
I don't know if any of these would be registered sex offenders, more they probably would just be...
This isn't the zoophile con. This is a completely different con.
Yeah, hold on. I don't want to rule that possibility out. There could be some of those here, but I would think that these would probably be more of the along the lines of the schizos. I'm hoping that's not.
Well, they're like the shut-in.
The kids who walked around the playground and talking to themselves.
Hey, hold on. That's a low blow there, sir. Come on now.
Oh no, Ray is reliving his childhood.
Look, I didn't have a lot of friends in school.
Hey, I made friends with those types, all right?
But these people have 50 friends at least.
I got 50 viewers. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So don't knock it's easy when you're online to think like, oh, I only have 50, so on and so forth. Man, if 50 people showed up to a room to listen to you, you'd be impressed.
Oh yeah. That's a lot of people to groom.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think the only time I got anything close to that is when I was at an anime convention, and we were doing a panel for Name That Tune with video games, and we would blow that convention out so badly that we filled the room completely and had people in the hallway trying to participate. So I think I might have actually done better than her, at least in terms of 50 people. I'm not bragging, by the way.
Of course, while I'm introducing us.
Of course,
Yes.
Not bragging at all.
Obviously, I'm Cinn. I'm that dog in the middle. I am from Western North Carolina in the Appalachians. We like to playfully call ourselves Three Wolf Moon. I don't know if is Jay in here? Jay's here to hang out with us today.
Do you remember Three Wolf Moon?
The meme?
Do you remember it?
I vaguely remember that phrase. What is that?
I know 3 Dog Night.
Never heard of it.
So Three Wolf Moon was a t-shirt on Amazon that has 3 wolves howling at the moon on it. And it's like one of those trashy, redneck t-shirts.
Yeah.
People started posting reviews on it that were funny, claiming like the shirt gave them superpowers and stuff, or that they landed a date while wearing it. So it became a meme for like a month, and now we're reviving it. Three Wolf.
I thought that they had simply based it on 3 Dog Night, the band.
That's actually okay. Now I remember the parody version of this from Chris Ray-Gun, where he did a shirt too, but it was the 3 Swing Moon. That's where this is from.
Yep.
Okay.
And note that it says they them, and that's important.
Very important.
Find out why.
Isn't it like?
Perfect. So there's Jay in the chat. So Jay is that dog on the right. And Jay had input on the entire panel as well, but we are just presenting it together. And so I'm Cinn. I'm a werewolf. Most specifically, I am of red wolf subspecies. I've actually identified as non-human for around 20 years, so I like to call myself a gray muzzle. I was
Lord. Oh, Lord.
20
20
years. 20 years of delusion.
And she's 28 years old.
Yeah, they get into that.
So
I
she
think.
started pretending to be a wolf. Or, I'm sorry, identifying as a red wolf at the age of 8.
Werewolf.
Look at that. It's not even red. It's yellow.
I feel sorry for the actual
Orange.
species of wolves that their names are tied to Otherkin.
Look, I want to be honest. I feel sorry for this person. They need help, but they're just genuinely trying their damnedest to avoid.
You know what I like? I like their flower crowns. It's like the most Tumblr signifier ever.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I can be honest, I am jealous, if only because I wish I could afford furry artists this good.
Yeah, I know. It's nice art. Pretty.
That
That person probably makes a crap load of money.
I was gonna say that artwork right there for this stupid presentation, that probably costs like $150 right there.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
For sure.
I'm not even joking, Dan, because there's
No,
because
I totally believe
yeah,
you.
because the thing is, they probably have a full version of that with all 3 of their characters like full body rendered. So like they just snipped a little bit of that, and then of course they have the other version for their own personal collection.
But yeah, briefly looking at the text on the screen, you got, yeah, I'm a shapeshifter, but primarily a wolf. I've been identifying as non-human for about 12 years. And I realized I'm non-binary about 6 years ago. Then you got Jay to the right. I'm also a werewolf and feel the same. And I feel that I always had the sense I was non-human. Wow. Since he was born, I guess.
This summer is the 10th anniversary of me coming out as non-binary. I can't help but seem to notice that I think all 3 of them are saying that they're non-binary.
Correct. And they talk about
that.
that.
I can't help but feel like they're identifying with non-binary coincides with when it started hitting popular culture. So I'm not claiming
Well, non-binary didn't exist until 10 years
Not
ago.
as an identifier, not as an identifying term, no.
Yeah, not as an identifier. Like that wasn't a thing you would label yourself.
Yeah,
as.
I think Jay's claiming 10 years ago, so he would have been right as that started hitting. But I do recall people in, I think, 2014, 15 start to use that word.
Mm.
So the thing is, too, is like, in my opinion, furries have always been on the cusp of this weird kind of cringy stuff. So them claiming 6 years ago would have been right around the time that it would have definitely started going through the furry circles. So I'm not saying they're bandwagoners. I'm just saying the timing lines up for when they would have discovered it.
It was around in the original Hearted conversation that Chimera's was talking about
no
the
claims,
other day.
just
Have been
an observation.
In forums for a while. However, I only recently realized that I was non-binary. It was within the past year, and it was with the help of these other 2 very good dogs.
Help. Did you hear that word?
Yeah, the help of those other 2.
Only with the help of the other 2 did she realize she is not.
Really?
That's not suspicious at all.
Oh, no. It's a very intrinsic identity.
Oh, man. Okay.
I imagine they had to really bring it out of her, you know?
Tyson, I'm getting flashbacks of the Final Fantasy house here. I'm worried.
They're going to start identifying as Final Fantasy characters.
Well, no, it's more of just like this is kind of this mental mass mental delusion stuff kind of works. Is these people who are unhinged that then coerce other people to be just as unhinged as they are.
And Pete, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Pete. I'm 30. I live in Chicago. I am a shapeshifter, polymorph, something, typically leaning toward werewolf. And I've been in and out of non-human communities for I think, about 12 years.
And yes, we all use they them pronouns. I have it on the old draft. We were like, oh, maybe we should put our pronouns on here. That might be useful. And so on the new draft, we all have they them, and we like to joke we're just a bunch of non-binary wolves. Which we'll talk about. Jay,
joke.
who is in the chat here with us, is 29 and from Los Angeles, and has all.
Well, like we all like to joke we're a bunch of non-binary. Where's the punchline? What's funny about that? I'm confused.
Yeah, isn't that their identity that makes them feel good? Like, what's the?
Yeah,
I mean, they go to talk about dysphoria versus euphoria later. We'll see that in the next panel.
I was going to say, I'm more confused of why that's supposed to be funny.
Is it because it's unusual to have 3 non-binary wolves in one room?
Yes, I don't know that. Like,
it's almost like they take glee in being different or something like that, and they're just kind of seeking an identity to set themselves apart from norm.
Are you claiming that these people are just attention seekers?
No, I would never claim such a thing. I would never claim that people pretending to be non-binary cartoon wolves on the internet are seeking attention.
Are you saying that these people are just trying to seek comfort in circles that will validate every conceivable thing that they say as if it's gospel?
How would I ever make that conclusion?
Yeah. The furry community is known for not being very accepting and being very intolerant of weird identities.
God,
they have very strict boundaries.
I mean, the furry community is a great and wonderful place that, I would recommend doing massive amounts of research before you ever want to step foot near it. But it is a great community of people.
Tennyson, do you confirm? Do we lose you?
For a second, because it just occurred to me that this art that they have up is actually not bad at all. Like, it's pretty decently drawn, and the color schemes are pretty okay. And that fills me with a certain sadness, knowing that an artist with pretty good art skills was paid money, cash, dough, to make them art.
Maybe they enjoy it.
I was gonna say, here's something I would say is that they probably have no idea who these people are. They probably got a commission. They didn't ask, because if you don't ask, don't tell sort of philosophy in the furry community. Most artists are just like, I just don't do not safe for work stuff. Here's a list of things I don't do. People just come in and they just say they want this. A lot of it is very impersonal. Like, you just don't really have conversations with the artist or the client. They're doing it because they just want money. They don't really know anything about you outside of that. So it's very likely this artist who did make this just they either found them because they were highly recommended, or they saw their work or whatever. They just said, how much for this? A price was spoken about. They paid it, and then they went on their way. And they probably have never talked about this artist since.
I don't feel too bad, because like you said, they probably made really good money on it.
Yeah, I was going to say, most from...
As an artist online, you're gonna... you need that money.
When I went to MFF, spoilers, when I talked to one of the artists there, I just felt like I got a feeling that she was like one of the most normal people I'd met at that convention. And I was looking through her book and stuff, and I could tell that she was getting slightly excited by the idea that I was really into the female stuff, because when I queried her more about it, she literally told me that she was so tired of drawing quote dog dick that she was hoping that I was going to pay for female art, because she just wanted to draw something else.
And then you're like,
just wanted to draw boobies.
I'll
man.
give you $50 if you draw a dog dick the size of the Sears Tower.
Man. That's great.
I mean, I don't
female form is a beautiful
I
thing.
can't draw for shit, but I can
Allegedly.
sympathize with anybody who gets tired of drawing red rockets all day.
I don't know if like because like the thing was too as I briefly looked through her mail one very briefly because you open a page and get flashed with 20-foot horse cock and then you're slamming that book shut. You're like, and I know what's in the rest of this.
Like, okay, enough has been seen.
I should probably find artists to commission at some point, just because.
Did the idea of giant horse cock inspire
no,
you?
not particularly. No, not today anyway.
I'm inspired to give these artists released from their hells.
Oh yeah,
so that they don't have to
you
continue
just
to draw.
Email the artist and say, "What do you wish people would ask you to draw? I'll pay you to do that."
Just a nice dinner scene between a family that loves each other.
Yeah, there you go.
Please.
Please, just human just like affection.
I want to draw an old man feeding ducks in the park.
I just want to draw bowls of fruit, please.
Yeah, oh god.
I haven't drawn bowls of fruit since art school. That was 20 years ago.
I can't help but feel like you go to some artist and you're just like, I will just pay you to just let you draw whatever you want. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. You're funding my dream. And they just draw giant Fuda dick.
I'll give you.
That's their whole
This is my dream.
It's just trying nothing.
Then their parents ask them, so you graduated art college. What do you do for a living nowadays? I'm a freelance artist. On a commission basis, I draw mostly funny animals. My work's very...
No, you gotta dress it up somehow. You gotta say
my work is very.
I draw representational art.
I draw very intimate art.
See?
I like to have intimacy in my. What is one of my major themes? Intimacy.
Jesus Christ! Imagine like one of these artists, like they've just been drawing this for so long, and even they try to draw something else. They try to draw a bowl of fruit. They still end up drawing like massive horse cock or something. They're like,
banana.
I'm trying the reflex now.
The reflex for drawing horse dick is just ingrained in their muscle memory, so they can't draw anything else.
They try it.
Here's just a bowl full of it.
I was about to make that joke. Damn it, Cal.
Oh.
No, it's even worse. It's just a bowl of just genitals. It's just cock, boobs, and ass.
These poor people.
Let's all donate to a furry artist today.
Donate to a furry artist today and tell them to draw humans because it's funny.
Honestly, I feel like furry artists who are tired of drawing furry art need like a label. You know that old "Look for the Union" label song? They need something like that to remind people to pay them to draw things that aren't completely fucked up. So always look for the furry label. I forget the rest of that song.
They were not human. This summer will be the 10th anniversary of them coming out as non-binary as well. So the other two wolves have a little more experience with being non-binary, but we kind of thought it would be interesting to talk about this experience on from the perspective of both someone who's new to being non-binary and someone and people who've been non-binary for a while.
It's sort of a bit of a contradiction to say that you're new to being non-binary.
Yeah, isn't the whole point of the gender identity is that it's always been you?
Yeah. Like if you talk to
see, they can't quite sort it out, right? They want to say, "I've always been non-binary. I just didn't know the label," but it's still true that they're new to it. They don't understand they don't process the concept quite the same as someone who's identified that way for a long time.
And I brought this up in the last or next to last video that we did, where we talked about the kids meet the non-binary individual, and I brought up that a lot of people like to conflate non-binary with being transgender, or this is kind of an outdated term, but being transsexual. But I think one of the reasons that those two identities just are not comparable at all is because if you ask or if you talk to people who have sort of fully transitioned and gone all the way, a lot of them will say, well, I've always felt like the opposite sex since I was a little kid. If you ask a trans woman who has gotten a complete sex change, has changed her legal gender to female, ask her where it all started, she'll probably tell you something like, oh, ever since I was 2, 3, or 4, I realized I wasn't a boy. I didn't like wearing boys' clothes. I didn't like how my hair looked. I didn't like feeling like a boy, having to do boy things. It's sort of almost an innate sense of dissatisfaction when it comes to being trans. It seems for a lot of people, but I don't really see that with people who identify as non-binary. I don't see that same sense of dissatisfaction or feeling that something isn't quite right. I don't see that.
It's definitely different. Yeah.
I was going to say, did anybody have anything to add to that? Because I agree 100%.
I think that's pretty.
And the thing is
complete.
It's almost like they're seeking what's the word? Attention.
Dan, come on, stop. We can't talk about how all they're doing is just seeking confirmation bias with us insular circles of people who will give them everything they want to hear. We can't say that about them. Stop.
Now, sometimes they will say, like, oh, I didn't like wearing dresses, or I didn't like. They'll use sort of the trans.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Thing, but I don't know. It's less convincing, I think. And
this is my thing and experience with the whole non-binary thing too. Is just like anytime I see somebody come out as non-binary and like I look through their profile for when they did that and then like afterwards, and I'm just like, oh, so literally nothing changed except what you demand people to call you. You act the same.
There's no transformation.
Yeah,
there's no.
You act the same. You do the same stuff. You're not even like, oh, like I'm going to be the opposite of what my gender was, or I'm going to do things that are like, a mix between the two genders, or like neither of the genders. No, it's just literally like they act the same. They just do the same.
There's no transition process.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but online and I guess in real life, the majority of people I've seen that identify as non-binary were, as they put it, assigned female at birth. Like, I've seen very few non-binary people or androgynous people who were, biologically male.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's me.
That's interesting to see Pete here. Pete is going to be an interesting character as we go further in the presentation.
Let's proceed.
Hold on. I wanted to say one more piece on the whole non-binary thing, because I mean, maybe it's me just being a bigot, but I feel like it's a fad, because the thing about it is that like it comes across to me because like the thing that they seem to be upset about is the whole idea of like, oh, I'm supposed to behave a certain way because of my gender or whatever, and like I'm not going to adhere to either of the gender's behaviors, and like I don't want to be put in a box. And I'm just like, yeah, you claim you don't want to be put in a box, and then you're going to neatly slam yourself into a different box and have that be the entirety of your being.
Oh yeah, they make like a whole bunch of other boxes, because you got non-binary, and then you got like agender and a bunch of other subcategories. It just gets more and more complicated.
And when you cut up people into intersecting identities like that, you eventually just arrive at a single person.
Indeed, and that's kind of actually alluded
to. Which in a sense is going full circle, because you start with talking about people as individuals, and you talk about them as groups, and then you talk about them as groups of intersecting ideas or intersecting traits. And if you intersect enough traits, you end up back at the individual again, because all people are unique.
Indeed.
Can't have that.
So, Pete, do you want to kick us off here?
Yeah. So, being both trans and kin, I experience both gender dysphoria and species dysphoria.
Shoot me.
I'm laughing at
his lisp is so good too.
I'm laughing at kin
Anyway.
brain simplicity. The jokes write themselves.
I was gonna say,
Yes.
can we talk about this slide for a second? This
Let him go through it,
slide.
and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, you gotta let him explain it. It's
All
funny.
right.
Keep going.
For myself personally, sorry. Excuse me. For myself personally, species dysphoria tends to be stronger for me. But yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Jay. And I do think a lot of my non-human gender stuff does go back to simplicity. Like, a dog doesn't see gender the same way that like the complex human brain does necessarily. And
I'm gonna disagree on that. I think a dog pretty much knows the difference between male and female.
I don't think the dogs or other non-human animals really have a sense of male and female. They just sort of exist. But yeah,
I would say like the reason humans are complex is because we can see some diversity within the sexes and recognize that. Animals do not. It's male or female.
Yes.
It's can I mate with it or can I not mate with it?
Sometimes they accidentally...
The simplicity is the binary.
Sometimes they accidentally can't figure out what the other individual is, and then they're just confused.
Because they're stupid. But again, those are the categories they live with. They don't live with gender. They don't live with non-binary. Like, animals don't have non-binary.
I was gonna say, don't most animals just... Wouldn't they just conceptualize it as a mate or a competitor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, is this thing in front of me ovulating, or is it not? That's basically an animal.
And then, I mean, you have social animals that do various things, even wolves that do different behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's dependent on sex.
I was gonna say, if it's the female duck, then it's probably the am I going to get raped today? Can I say that? Can I say that? Is that
sure? Hey, go ahead.
Or bitch.
Man, I don't censor anything.
Look, all I'm saying is that it's a medically or scientifically accepted fact that ducks rape other ducks.
Yeah, for sure. They got that 10-inch corkscrew action.
Awful.
Yeah, so I don't... Yeah, that part of this slide where it says kin brain simplicity, well, dogs don't really have gender. Okay, they don't have a human conception of gender.
And
they're just sexed. They're just biologically sexed animals. That's it. They're not non-binary or agender or any of that.
Can I just go on a limb here and just point out how adorably unprepared he is to give this speech?
Oh, they're both adorably unprepared.
He paused for 15 whole seconds of just no talking, then thanked his friend for apparently giving him something off screen. I'm just like, this is great. This is a kid who struggled greatly in speech class.
Took like 8 minutes to get started because they were having so many tech issues.
I feel so bad for him, but at the same time, it's wonderfully quaint.
With finding my own non-binary and non-human gender, I'm able to make it personal. It's my own specific gender, and like, in my opinion, finding and forming my own gender makes me feel powerful, kind of like transforming into a werewolf can make you feel powerful.
Let's just ruminate on that line. I love that line.
There's so much to unpack with that. Personally, again, it's just he's just stopping for there's just these very long pauses. I don't even find them awkward personally. I just find them adorable. They're cute.
Finding my own specific gender. So this is what Tenny's talking about.
Yeah,
right?
there's the thing I was bringing up.
Now they're an individual.
Everything is
the gender is so personal that there is no category that can encapsulate them anymore.
I was gonna say,
which just defeats the point.
That was the thing I was bringing up with the whole non-binary thing. It's like all these people are just like, don't put me in a box, and then neatly like slide themselves into a box and call it an individual perspective. And I'm like, I guess
Don't put me in your box. I'll make my own box. Put me in that
hookers
box.
and blow.
Yeah, with hookers and blow.
And it makes me feel powerful. The way transforming into a werewolf makes me feel powerful.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know, I admittedly I've never gotten to feel the experience of transforming into a werewolf. For the sake of science, I would be willing to partake in this experiment. If anybody has the ability to, I don't know, horribly mangle my genes, cause me to transform in the full moon and turn into a werewolf, and describe the feeling to everybody on paper so we can write a research paper about this.
Unless it's Twilight.
To do is become autistic. You just got to become autistic.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Unless it's Twilight, I've never seen a werewolf story where the person who's turning into a werewolf wants to be a werewolf and they enjoy it.
I mean, I could see it. The only way I could see it being something you'd enjoy is if you were like a shape-shifting wizard or something who did that regularly to, I don't know, to go on quests or whatever. Because if you could just magically transform into an animal, that would be badass. Let's be honest. If you had the magical ability, if you could be a wizard who could transform into like a wolf or a tiger, that would be kind of badass, right?
If you told me I
grew up with Animorphs, and that was totally not badass.
Animorphs.
That was kind of
Animorphs is not badass.
You see,
it was nightmare.
Here's the problem. It's like if you told me that I could gain the ability to transform, and the limitation was my imagination, the first thing I'm not going to pick is werewolf. I'm probably going to pick Triceratops Rex with Gatling guns for arms.
That would be pretty cool.
It would just be something nonsensical and off the wall.
Ever seen the Animorphs TV show?
It had a TV show?
Very briefly. It was horrible garbage. Trash.
It did not go very far. Sister really likes those books. I've not actually read them. She says they're really good.
So disappointed that it didn't survive longer.
All right, can we keep going?
Keep going.
Now we're going to talk about early life acceptance.
And Cinn, what had you wanted to say about early life acceptance?
So my theory about early life acceptance is that if we start out from a really young age identifying ourselves as non-human, and so you say to yourself, something's off here, something's not right. I feel like that's really, and then I guess a lot of times with the trans experience as well, and maybe, and as we'll talk later, saying something's not right isn't exactly the right terminology, but just saying something is maybe a little different from everybody else. And so when you grow up with that kind of willingness to say, well, I'm probably not human, then when it comes to things like, well, I'm probably not X gender I was assigned at birth, it's a little easier for you to make that transition. Like you can say, okay, that makes, if I can step out of the realm of being a human, then I can certainly say I'm not a woman, right?
Are you
okay?
Super easy for me.
Oh my God, we're all pausing. Are you trying to tell me that if you're already accepting a delusion about yourself, like you're not human, that it's easier to accept other delusions? My God, groundbreaking, groundbreaking.
Oy. Do you think it works the other way too? Get a little spicy there.
A little spicy.
But certainly seems to be a pipeline for these people.
It sure does, doesn't it?
They decide they're not human, and the next thing they're like, I think I'm not this either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I said, it's a very flippant way of phrasing how gender dysphoria would work.
Yeah, I think
it gets even more flippant in the next slide.
Oh, it's ridiculously flippant.
It's super analogous. It's just the same thing. You realize you're not really human, and that from then on, it's easy to say you're not really a woman.
Are you suggesting that these people discover that they're different in some way, and then embrace that difference, and then decide that they will pick as many possible things as they can to make themselves even more different than everybody around them. I just keep adding things to their non-existent personality for no other reason than it's different.
Just buy a hat. Buy a hat and wear a hat. What are you doing all this shit
for? These are fundamentally broken people trying to pick up the pieces.
Get a piercing.
Trying to make sense of the fact that they don't belong anywhere, because in real life they're rejected socially.
I don't know if they don't belong and they're rejected. I think it might be that they're like,
it's starting to sound familiar.
Yeah, it does.
Stop it.
Yeah, it does.
Stop it.
But I don't know if they're rejected and they don't belong anywhere. I think it's more so that they're just like, I'm just like everybody else and I want to be different. I think that's part of it too.
I had to dig through my phone for quite a few minutes here to find this, but I cannot think of a more appropriate picture for what we're dealing with.
You're dealing with gay werewolves or non-binary.
Actually, he goes on to say that he's married to a woman.
A human woman.
A human woman. Didn't marry a dog for some reason.
Inside of you, there are two wolves. One is gay. The other is gay. You are being butt fucked. Hashtag surprise butt sex.
So we did have
just full of gay wolves.
We had to skip the first 7 minutes, which is
nothing.
Slightly sad to me because there was one choice quote that they said at the very beginning of this, or at least that Pete said at the very beginning of this, that was particularly damning in my opinion, is when they said that the phrase that Otherkin and transgenderism is they go very hand in hand. In fact, if you plotted them out on a Venn diagram, it would basically be just a circle.
Oh.
And I don't know what to say to that. I think if you said that to people who were trans, like legitimately like suffering from gender dysphoria, I feel like they would get offended by that statement. And not unjustifiably so.
Fear of being strangled.
I was gonna say, I feel like
I think so, and it's interesting. I'm trying to think how best would a trans person counter that. What's the strongest argument against it? To say you can't identify as a wolf
because you're delusional.
Okay, well, I could say that about I could say that about
because
you.
I have a concrete, semi-realistic goal that I'm aspiring for.
Okay, so do I.
Do you?
Yeah, I want to be a wolf.
Is that realistic? Do you have surgeries? Do you have
not yet.
Not yet. I mean, what? I mean, trans people didn't always have surgeries available. Trans people have existed all through time and space. I
believe they came here on an asteroid.
Exactly.
I can't help but feel like one of the immediate
I think it's interesting to
retorts.
Think about it.
I
think they've dug themselves into a hole with the whole social construction thing, because guess what? The human species is a social construct.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of a human versus an animal, the difference, that's a total social construct in itself.
See, though, this is the thing that I would argue that, like, the trans people who are very serious about this, the first thing they're going to throw into these people's faces is going to be things like, did you talk to a therapist? Did you get clinically diagnosed as having X thing? Are you actually doing anything to try to adjust your lifestyle or take some form of medication to try to adjust your mental stability?
Because I'm wearing a tail butt plug and eating little Caesar.
But you know what they would say is you're a hypocrite because you don't advocate those things for trans identifying people. Nowadays, it's actually taboo to tell a person who identifies as trans, you need therapy, you need to sort this out, you need this and that.
That's the thing to me, is that like
so what's the difference?
The trans people that I know who are serious about this, and like I just want to make a distinction to them.
Well, we are talking about there are two groups. You got the trans medicalists, and then you got
the Yeah, I would say that like the
radical groups.
Well, I like the thing is that like I think you were talking about this one day, Dan. Well, I think the trans movement is kind of going through its I don't know. I guess I think you described it as like its teen years right now.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and so like the thing is like
know where it stands.
And so that's the thing is
going
like
through its liberation era.
Yeah, because like there's a person I know who's trans, and they're talking about like they basically just constantly rant about all of the trans stuff that's going on right now, because they said, in 10 to 20 years, this shit would have been normal and people just wouldn't be talking about it and it wouldn't be a big deal. But then all the boomers who were about to die wanted to feel like they either changed the world or could be accepted for who they are, decided to push the envelope and fucked it for the rest of us. This is what they actually say. They're incredibly bitter about this. And I can't blame them, because they are, they would be one of these trans medicalists. They went through all the steps. They jokingly say the phrase, "I didn't cut my balls off for nothing."
It's rough because now it's like anybody can be trans for any reason.
I think that
like that's just it. I just declare it and it's law.
All you gotta do is buy leggings on Amazon and boom.
Yeah, you can be trans even if you don't really give a shit about putting effort in.
Well, and I wonder, because is there a difference between kin and gender? Because I tried to figure this out just by looking at the wikis. What's the difference between being a fire kin and a fire gender?
I mean, going through our
is there a difference? They're both. It's both about identity.
I feel like aesthetic preference.
I feel like this is a tactic of purposeful, like haze around the concept itself to try to keep people in this, like try to keep it as loose and as vague as possible, so you can basically declare it to be whatever you need it to be whenever you're defending yourself against other people,
or to feel good.
Yeah, either or, because that's the thing. Again,
that's all about.
It all comes down to it all comes down to feelings, whether you're dear gender or dear kin.
I mean, let's think about this for a second.
How you feel.
They made a convention in 2020 for Otherkin. Now, the easy excuse on the face of it is, they did this because of COVID. But most conventions I know are gearing up for getting ready for like having their conventions be held in person, as it's like starting with not only this year but next year. So this was like late on the bandwagon of that.
Excuse me, saying in person is very not inclusive for Otherkin. Just saying. Just
in kin.
See, though, that's it. That's exactly what I'm talking about, though. These people wouldn't dare do this at a public event that like other people could go to, because they can't vet them as heavily, or like can't keep themselves from being publicly ostracized by the rest of wider society. And this was one of the things that even I remember when I went to MFF, the people in the furry community complained about a lot, is that it was very much about keeping specifically the media out of the event. They
like Antifa.
Well, yeah, but for different reasons that are similar to this. They just didn't want people to basically have eyes on them and make fun of them. Which, in the furries case, I think is just, the innocence of like, yeah, these people, they're weird, they know they're weird, and they kind of feel weird, but like when they're here, they could be open and they could be honest about what they are, and it's like, it's it's debatable whether or not it's a healthy coping mechanism or not, but at least socializing with people in person, there's an argument to be made that there's like some good that comes from that.
There's nothing quite like socializing over a big binder of dog dick examples that you can pick from for an artist.
Nothing like it.
So it's an easy step for me to make.
It leads right into more self-examination and finding things that feel good and right for yourself.
They feel good.
Like, one of the appeals too of this is making it personal, which is something I feel like we should do with all kinds of things in life. Because one, it just helps us, and we'll talk more about this as we go along. But it makes when you're non-human, then you have that push to identify what your kin type is and learn more about yourself. It makes it personal, right? It makes you take self-reflection. It makes you say, what is about me that's non-human? What is it about me that's not?
I just want to say that's not self-reflection.
Show of hands here. Show of hands. How many people here view their race very personally? How about your sexuality? Yeah. How about your eye color? Does anybody here view that very, very personally? No? Because that's, of course nobody here does, because that's fucking stupid.
Problem with so much exploration is, in some ways, it's a process of making yourself ever more inscrutable to the outside world. You're making your gender and your identity even more and more bizarre to the point where people can't interpret you. And they even say this as a point of pride, like, well, gender is just so personal that no one else can understand it. It's like, why would you want your gender to be something that no one can understand?
We'll learn that she takes pride later in that people can't identify her gender by looking at her.
And this is like the thing too. I remember when I was like getting really into the furry stuff, and I'm not super proud of admitting this, but I had a fursona for a while. And I remember going through this kind of mental process because everybody in the furry community encourages you to do this. And I was like, kind of like did more research into it. And I really started to look at myself and whatnot. I was like, this is dumb. Like, this is just a sexual fetish to me. And I've turned this into like something it really shouldn't be. And like that to this day is the reason why I don't have like any of this stuff anymore. All I do is just engage in it in a very private manner. And like I don't really do like the outward stuff anymore because I just realized that it really wasn't like what I was wanting from the community. Then I even realized the only reason I even interacted with the community was to try to figure out why I was like this and try to change it. What I'm saying is all furries are mentally deranged in some form or another.
Well, and that kind of brings me back to why I paused, because she was talking about self-exploration and things like that. And it's not healthy self-exploration to not explore yourself and to actually say that, no, I'm this fantasy creature and I'm going to explore that. I'm going to explore how I'm this fantasy creature. That's not self-exploration. That's not being introspective. That's just attaching yourself to this fantasy ideal. That has nothing to do with self-exploration.
Yeah, like it's in no way inside yourself. It's something external that you've adopted and you're projecting onto.
It's very unhealthy advice.
One of the best things I remember actually doing, and this was like probably the only person at that convention who like had some sense on his shoulder, was that there was a guy who did a psychology panel. Like the guy, well, hold on, Danimal. Here's the thing about that guy. He was a PhD psychologist. He actually knew what he was talking about. I pretty much, and like it was the first time I'd ever actually got exposed to this stuff. Like that was the first year I went to that convention. But I realized in hindsight, that guy was like a splash of cold water on a lot of those people. Because I remember distinctly, he took a question, and one of the people asked him about, like, you know, identifying as their character, and he said the phrase, like, oh, if this is just like, you know, your fun, like, little persona that you use for, like, online or coming to the convention because you dress up in this costume, that's fine. He's like, but if you're waking up in the morning, you're looking in the mirror, and you're seeing yourself as this character, he's like, you might want to go seek therapy.
Oof.
He was very blunt about it.
Very blunt.
Well, you need to be.
I like the thing was is that I realized that probably just out of pure serendipity, that was the exact person I needed to like listened to and talked to from that community, because it probably pulled me straight off of the edge.
Yep.
I'm glad that I've never gotten sucked into any of this shit.
I
was
just
a
got
very
sucked into being
impressionable
gay.
child. I think I
Yeah.
played along.
Whole other cult, homosexuality.
I think I've met like Otherkin types, like jumping back and forth between like different homeless shelters and boys' homes, and like living in homeless shelters with my mom when I was a kid. I've met types like this, and I'd go along with their delusions just to like have a friend or whatever. But I never got the appeal of living in your own imagination.
Did they ever bark at you?
No.
Or meow?
I met like this chick who she was convinced she was a vampire.
Oh.
And she'd walk around
those are my
talking to
favorite.
herself around the playground, and nobody wanted to talk to her. But I hung out with her, and I'd feed into her like little delusions or whatever. Mostly because I was less popular. Sadly, I was a little jerk.
Oh.
Now you're a big jerk.
Yes.
Now you're all grown up jerk. Yeah. The evolution. All right, I'm gonna keep going. We got being kin and finding your gender.
People, it's a constant growing experience. I mean, we've all known people. I mean, I'm a wolf, and so obviously I'm not dragging people who identify as wolves, but we've all known people who started out at like 13, 14 in like the experience of kin, and who started out maybe as like a wolf, but later down the road found out that maybe that wasn't exactly it. You know, that it was wolf was just easy and acceptable. And I think we see that in similar ways with the trans experience as well. You know, you might say, oh, well, I've known a lot of folks who maybe started out, assigned female at birth, but then transitioned to male and went and like swapped to male presentation. And then really what they were was non-binary. And so it was like a constant growing process. And so kind of what we're wanting to highlight here is that this is about a journey. This is about going through different phases of life and being able to change and be flexible. And we think that being trans and kin allows for more of that flexibility. And it allows you to, and kind of the cute thing we like to assure ourselves is that the moon goes through phases, and so do we. And that's.
I think actual trans people would be very offended by calling it a phase.
It's so weird. Yeah.
Oh,
what the heck? I thought this was supposed to be an intrinsic part of yourself that once you decide it, that's it. Like that you're sure of yourself. People at the age of 3 know their gender identity. This is what I hear.
That's not what these people think, though.
So now they're saying, no, it's actually just, a phase that you can move through. It's okay. You can
so
change a lot.
So Ray, she was describing how trans and otherkin helps you kind of explore yourself, and it's like going through moon phases as you evolve, exploring these different identities.
Excuse me? What?
Oh yeah.
I feel like
it's just a metaphor.
I feel like if I showed this to a trans person without like explaining myself beforehand, I would be
assaulted.
Yes,
with a deadly weapon, very likely. I feel sorry for anybody who is being non-binary or trans and has to navigate the intersectionality part of it, having to deal with all of these other groups and identities that are trying to make everything kind of click together, and it's so hard to, like, the human experience is hard enough on its own for people to understand that people don't really get themselves or the world around us. That's why we're constantly trying to study ourselves in psychology and other things. It isn't innate. You don't really know yourself intrinsically. But on top of that, there are people who are purposely muddying the waters for you as you're trying to understand yourself, because they are trying to live their own delusions and refuse any sort of rationale or reason to their actions. They just want everybody to accept their own.
Yeah, it's kind of like they pave the way for other people to follow in their footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, this is the identity I formed, and you can do it too, and here's how. And it gets very manipulative, I think. And they often prey on people who are very unsure of themselves, often very young. This is the internet. You don't know the age of people you're interacting with, and often they're teenagers. I also think it's really, they say it's okay to change your mind. Okay, what if you decided you were trans at 11 and you were on puberty blockers and you started taking testosterone around, 15, 16. You got a mastectomy and then you change your mind.
Oh.
Is it just like whoopsie doodle? Are we just supposed to shrug that off and say, oh, well, it's fine to change your mind?
No, you're supposed to give them a TV show on TLC.
I was going to say, isn't there a whole Reddit or a website dedicated to the trans regret stuff?
Yes, D-Trans.
Yeah.
D-Trans Reddit has thousands of members.
Yeah, I know that the general trans community and SJWs do not like that.
I wouldn't say the general trans community doesn't like
it. Okay. Let me be more specific.
Let's say trans radical activists.
Yes, those do not like it. They really hate it because
they write them off. They say, "Oh, they just made a stupid mistake. It's their fault. They were never trans."
See, that's disgusting to me, though. That they say like, "Oh, they just made a stupid mistake." A stupid mistake that you helped push people into.
Like you talked them into it. And they were young.
We're watching people talk people into this right now. That's what
I was going to say. How can you say like, oh, it's a stupid mistake? You are helping recreate their mistake.
Go on TikTok and see all the videos of preteens talking about how great it is.
I mean, we heard them earlier, these Otherkin people describe how, accepting yourself as Otherkin makes it far easier to eschew your gender and, explore your gender in that way. And I mean, what's the age group for the Otherkin? When do you discover Otherkin? They said, 14, 15?
Some of them are like 8 years old when they started identifying as non-binary.
You know what me accepting that I was a furry helped against?
What?
It helped against me being suicidal. This is just them saying this, especially so flippantly. Like, this is why I'm saying I can only imagine how annoyed a trans person would be listening to this. Like, I have to admit, like, I feel bad for these people because, like, I do just genuinely think they're suffering from, like a mental disease of, like, delusion. And so I don't think they're trying to do this stuff on purpose. It's just...
I think that
completely giving into the thing that's making their life worse. And as a result, the two communities that they're claiming to be a part of want nothing to do with them.
I think the delusion that these specific Otherkin people that we're listening to it's a symptom of larger mental issues that are defined that they have. I mean, we'll listen to them talk about those.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, this is a symptom of something larger.
For sure.
That they're dealing with.
It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to be different. It's okay to start out thinking you're absolutely this one kin type and later being something else. It's okay to think that it's okay to be cis and explore being trans and then later say, oh, actually, maybe I'm not trans. Maybe I am just cis.
It's okay to make a completely life-changing decision and then say, maybe not. It's perfectly okay. It's okay, guys. Everything is okay.
It's all reversible.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, if affirmation therapy was not the instant go-to, if somebody goes to a medical professional and says, I think I'm transgender, if affirmation therapy was not the first thing, whereas if
medicalization wasn't the first
that's
thing.
what I'm getting at. But if medicalization wasn't the first thing, whatever. Just what play around online, whatever. But if that wasn't what's happening right now, man, these people they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're playing with. They don't know who's in that audience that they're talking to. This is really irresponsible. This is really irresponsible, the way these people are discussing this subject.
I was going to say, this right here, this exact mentality right here is why I'm so against the hormone blockers in children. Because people treat it as if it's just nothing. And it's like, we don't know what this is doing to people, let alone children.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a game. You know, I mean, you may think, oh, it's cute. You know, we're non-binary werewolves on the internet. This isn't cutesy. This isn't a game.
I can't understand how people will, like, when you explain to them the history of psychology and how it's just paved in, like, basically the story of just horrid, like, victims that we learned so much from. How you could look at that and just think, oh, let's just do this totally untested, unproven thing and just see what happens. It's like, are you joking? After the mountain of human atrocities that we've committed, you just want to flagrantly and just completely word I'm looking for
all the brains we've mutilated,
to
deal with rebellious teenagers,
the brains we've mutilated, the physical changes that we've done to people that end up destroying them mentally.
We didn't get to the part about euphoria versus dysphoria yet.
No, I'm sorry.
No?
I was just
that part is.
I'm not angry at these people. Just this is horrifically irresponsible.
Yeah,
I agree. Irresponsible.
You know, it is so okay to just be flexible and explore, and that's really what we want to highlight here. It's just take it one paw at a time.
Yes, very agreed.
Anything else there?
There's a Tumblr post by Girl with the Loon Tattoo.
A Tumblr post, the pinnacle of where you should be going
Research
for mental advice.
Yes.
Kill me now. I want to die.
Do you guys remember when Tumblr was a platform that was alive?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
it had porn and it had SJWs, and that
I was gonna
it.
say, and then Yahoo bought it. I was just like, "Oh, we're getting rid of the porn," and people were like, "Okay, bye."
Rip.
Yeah, rip. Even people who didn't come there for the pornography just decided to fuck off anyway.
All right, let's get
as they should have.
Yeah.
It says people say phase, like impermanence means insignificance. Show me a permanent state of the self, and I always think about that a lot. Because we are, as living beings, we're constantly growing and constantly changing. And it's important to keep that in mind and remember that change happens and change is okay and change is natural.
That one line alone changed this from ignorance to manipulation in a malicious way.
Oh, so?
To say that, like, because he's very aware with that line of what our counter is. It's like, this is irresponsible to be doing this. It's saying the things like, oh, it's, like, people say, like, oh, like, if impermanence is, like, I forget, like, the phrasing he said, but he essentially said what we said, which was that it's so flippant. And he's like, oh, like, people are constantly telling me, show me a state of permanence with this stuff. It's just like, well, we're beings that are constantly changing, and it's just like, so let me get this straight. You're aware of what you're advocating for. You're just gonna plug your ears and deny it.
You know, two things that don't change as you age: your species and your sex.
No shit.
Those two things do not transform as you get older. They stay the same.
You mean I'm not going to become a dragon when I turn 40?
You're not going to become a dragon. I'm sorry. If someone sold that to you,
I don't necessarily want to rewind it, but I just want to hear that sentence one more time, just so I'm certain of it.
There's a Tumblr post by Girl with the Loon Tattoo that says people say phase, like impermanence means insignificance. Show me a permanent state of the self, and I always think about that a lot. Because we are, as living beings, we're constantly growing and constantly changing. And it's important to keep that in mind and remember that change happens and change is okay and change is natural.
Yeah, nothing in nature.
See, like I said, he said the phrase, like people say phase as if if we're making it insignificant. He's downplaying that. He knows the critiques that he's going to get. And with that one line, he's just immediately brushing them all off.
Yeah, because I think they know it's a phase.
Oh my gosh.
These are adult people.
Yes.
These are people in their 30s or late 20s. These are adult people.
That's actually kind of openly malicious. Oh my god. That's disgusting.
It's
very cult-like.
It's very religious, spiritual as well.
Is this just a case of somebody just like buying their own bullshit, or is this person an actual like manipulator? Like this is gone from like
I have to believe that they believe this.
Okay,
they believe
this is starting to get really concerning.
Well, we are looking at Discord grooming in action, so just keep that.
I thought.
Just wait. There's some more disturbing.
Oh my gosh! I was gonna say because like I was just gonna say I was coming into this expecting this to be like I don't know like weird and off-putting, but not like this. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh!
All year. In fact, it is the very nature of nature to change. Nature is just like the seasons of the year. Like even like a desert doesn't stay the same all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's a constant evolving process, and we have to be, and especially I feel like as kinfolk, a lot of us kinfolk are a little, we feel more in line with nature or that process. But yes, Ratatouille, perfect. Well, it's beautiful.
Also, I wanted to say, I didn't realize I'm non-binary until I was about, I think, 24, and then Cinn, you realized more recently than that, right? And it's never too late to start looking at this or think about it. For some people it's obvious from childhood, but like even if you're in your 30s or whatever, or 60s or 80s, it's always perfectly healthy to start examining your gender.
Always find out you're non-binary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems to be the goal.
You just gotta think about it, right? And then you'll find it.
Remember, kids, it's okay to think for yourself, as long as you arrive at the same conclusion that I did.
Well, it's definitely the easiest queer identity to come by, other than demisexual. Demisexual is like a really easy mode.
It's basically the sexuality where you're not a sociopath.
Yeah. It's like, I'm a normal person. Yeah, I'm queer.
I had never accepted change, then I would still be like, let's just say I'd be a very different person than I am now. But I picked up they, them pronouns in just the last year, and I'm 28. So that's very new to me, very, very new to me. And but it took it was something I was, anyway, I don't want to, I think this is on another part of the slide, and I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Do we really believe that she's changed a lot?
No.
In a year, just become a totally new person because they changed their pronouns.
See, this is a thing that I've seen from all these non-binary people. They don't actually change. It's like I was saying. I don't think she's changed. Does anybody else here think she's changed?
I don't know what that means. That I've changed. I don't know what that means.
Okay, let me try and like rationalize this as much as I can. Okay, trying to see things through their perspective. Maybe they're saying what they're really saying is that they have changed and that they have gone through different phases, like from their own perspective. But the way that they see themselves and view themselves and their ideology, their conceptualization of their self has gone through phases as they've understood themselves, as they've learned more things and understood themselves differently. Perhaps.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think in the statement they just said, there is an implication that a lot of change has happened in the last year. And the change that was listed was, I changed my pronouns. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's not really a change. That's just a linguistic shift.
It's not really the most superficial of changes, really.
It's very superficial. It's like changing your haircut. Like,
well,
and there was
people who are extremely bought into like a fandom or a community that they're extremely connected to a movement of any sort. Like even if that is something that doesn't have anything to do with identity and the way we perceive it, like punks. A change in the fashion, a change in what is and what isn't, punk, or what isn't rock and roll, what isn't jazz, or what isn't American. I know there's another label. What is or isn't American, how that's defined will have a huge impact on a person's life if they are extremely bought into any of those specific concepts whenever they change. So maybe, like, obviously, because all of us, we're individuals, but whenever you give up a lot of your individuality to form a group, to be a part of a group, then that group's dynamics and how that group changes affect your life greatly. If you're living in the time of McCarthy and you're a red-blooded American, what it means to be an American and how that changes has a huge effect on it. And you're probably not going to be happy that, liking rock and roll makes you less American if you're a patriot. Especially whenever you might get called onto some sort of Council of Un-American Acts or whatever the heck it was called.
Yeah, HUAC. Yeah.
And judged as not American and possibly blacklisted. But of course, these groups are much smaller than all of America, of course. So it's just a microcosm of that.
It's a subculture of a subculture of a subculture, almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lifelong process.
Mm-hmm. I do think that we mentioned dysphoria earlier, but I do also think that euphoria is something that's really, really important. And finding things that give you gender and species euphoria. I'm DMAB, and if I lived my life as a man, I'd be okay. I could cope with that. That would be fine. But finding ways to explore my non-binary gender and also my wolfiness.
Can we just take a second to pause at wolfiness?
My wolfiness.
I'm trying to wait to give as much time for him to explain.
It makes me feel good. It makes me feel great. So doing things that can give you gender euphoria and species euphoria, like that helped me really could function that way,
I see it's part of the video. They lost connection.
Nice doxing all your Discord friends, guys.
It allows for exploration, and you can try different things that feel good and that make you feel better, rather than things that'll hurt you or even just be neutral to you.
Okay, get back on the stream. Get it back on the stream.
There's a small discussion in the chat going about like how animals, like animal gender, and how it's very fluid in the animal kingdom, which is.
I hate to do this while our guy is in the middle of trying to fix his technical issues, but there's just so much to unpack with everything that guy just said.
Yeah.
Firstly, I just want the small admission here that he just said, which was that if I was just male and myself and human, that would be fine. I could go about my life doing that, but it gives me a sense of euphoria to experience my wolfy self and my non-binary self. If that is not an admission, this is total bullshit to them. And it's just them basically taking drugs to feel good. I don't know what is.
Strange is in the trans radical circle, they've really erased the necessity for having gender dysphoria. Sorry, I'm reaching for the term. They really said you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans. And I think that argument has led us here, where they say, oh, actually, I would be fine being my birth sex. I would be fine being human, but I really like being non-binary, and I really like being a wolf. So that means I am trans, and I am Otherkin.
Just so odd. Like, again, the phrase that I can't help but think here is just disgusting. Like,
meanwhile, people are killing themselves.
People are killing themselves
because their dysphoria are so bad.
Yeah, some people are killing themselves because their dysphoria is so bad. Some people are killing themselves because they've made irreparable, life-changing decisions that they can't undo, and now they desperately wish they could. There's some people who are struggling in limbo that can't move forward with the process, either due to just medical limitations or because of financial limitations. And here this fucking prick is just being like, I could live with myself with all of my ingrained birth characteristics, but I would really feel better if I was just allowed to be non-binary and be a wolf. It would make me feel euphoric. Gross.
I do like the analogy you made with drugs, because it just, yeah, they want to take drugs.
You need a therapist. You have a problem.
You need the hit, the emotional hit.
It's what it is. I got the fact that he's using the phrase euphoria. Like, I'm sorry. Like, the only time I've ever heard people say phrases such as feeling euphoric in a normal, healthy way, and I'm just being very serious about this when I say this, is like climaxing. That's about one of the only actual ones I can think of. Outside of that, it's usually just people who meditate and get into such a quote like good headspace that they feel very happy, content with themselves, and on the verge of almost like a euphoric feeling.
Absolutely true. There's all kinds of, there are literally animals out there that can just change their, even what we would call, and again, I'm using air quotes for this very heavily, biological gender at will.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well,
what do we?
So the closest thing I can even think of that's an actual real thing that she's referring to is frogs who can actually change their genitalia, not at will, as she's flippantly describing it as, but more as I recall, basically a biological last resort. There's not enough females to breed.
That's true.
A number of species that do this. It's usually, but like I said, like early invertebrates. So fish, amphibians, lizards can do it, I think. Mammals do not do this. I don't think there's ever been a recorded. There have been birds that done it. I know there's a peacock that did this. That was a female and like spontaneously produced testosterone and became a male. But mammals don't. This is not a thing that's near mammals.
Yeah, it's usually it's
very steady in their sex production.
Yeah, it's animals with very primitive reproduction systems.
Yeah, basically. So they're a lot more flexible. Mammals are quite advanced in their genetics and the organs that work and how the hormones interact with those organs. It's all very complicated.
The equipment's
and as a result, it doesn't just flip like a switch.
The equipment's too advanced. We can't just flip it from one side to the other so easily. It requires a long process.
And I love that they did this whole like air quotes, double air quotes, because it's not a real thing. Biological gender. What? I thought gender and sex were separate things. Isn't that what we were told? Like 5 years ago.
This is another case of what
I would separate.
Yeah, this is another case of what I would say is like manipulative language, because the obvious implication of that is that like it's wording that would confuse people, that would make them think that they're talking about sex characteristics not being a thing. Because as you said, we've accepted the premise that gender is not a biological factor. I personally would go one step further and say that gender was never truly a thing. It was an invented thing that eventually found a use case outside of its original intended purpose and was fine. It was a less scientific word to describe people's sex that people felt fine with using because if you say, "Oh, what's your birth sex?" to a 5-year-old, they're immediately going to giggle. So using the term gender, it's a little bit more of a nonsense word, and so like using that with a 5-year-old, they're less inclined to be like hee hee ha ha penis. Point being is that conflating gender with a biological characteristic in this sentence is meant to invoke the idea that she's softly trying to put in people's mind that biological sex is not a thing. But she's using specific wording so that if she's pushed on this, she could be like, oh no, well, gender's not a biological thing.
Yeah, it's very weaselly. I wouldn't be surprised if this person has very little background in biology. Like, probably couldn't explain it. Like, okay, what's the process by which certain animals switch sex? They wouldn't be able to tell you. Or what animals do it. They don't know. Or why they do it. Because like you said, it's pretty much always because of a sex disparity. There's no males around. So one of the females has to become male. That's clownfish, for instance. It's purely for necessity. Like, you gotta have something to inseminate. Otherwise you can't breed. But breeding is always out of the picture in their minds. Breeding is never part of the equation. It's all about identity, which, I mean, from my perspective, gender identity is not a thing. I think gender is just a magic word they pull out, and they really mean several things when they say gender, and those several things they're not grounded in any meaningful way.
I'm honestly so annoyed by the fact that people have taken the academic version of gender and forced it into the public light to decouple it from sex. Because again, as I was saying, I think it had a use case in the public light, and that it was a useful piece of language that we're now just actively trying to destroy.
It's become nonsensical.
Yeah, essentially for the sake of feel-goodism.
People who can just be like, oh, animals that can just be like, I'm going to be a man today, or and again, we're using these terminologies very, very loosely, but I mean, even in nature, we see that fluidity, biological sex is a good term, yes.
I think that there are different kinds of fluidity that they're conflating here, because we agree that there are animals, mostly amphibians and fish and some reptiles, that can change their biological sex organs, and that is kind of fluid, but the other kind of fluidity they're referring to is what she said, waking up and thinking, I'm going to be a man today. Those are not the same thing in any meaningful capacity. Yeah. The former one is a biological process that has been observed and documented and has millennia of evolution behind it. The second one is just a semantical obfuscation of the term man and the term woman, to the point where they are abstracted and disconnected from anything represented in the real world or anything really perceived. So they're not really; those two things are not the same.
And they don't happen day to day either. This is not a day to day process.
Yeah, nobody wakes up and decides to be the opposite.
Well, animals in particular don't change sex for one day and then change back.
Yeah, they live their life.
That is not how it works.
They live the life as usually it's just a male to a female, and no one wakes up randomly and says, I'm going to be a man today, or I'm going to be a woman today. Nobody does that. No person with gender dysphoria or people who no trans person would do that, I think, because that's not how that works. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you are, but I do just want to say I love the Freudian slips of her being unable to keep the story straight, of like her like saying the word people and then man and then like immediately like backpedaling and being like, oh, we're just like or animals or we're just using the general colloquialisms sort of thing. Like, it's just, man, it's so beautiful. It's just so wonderful, in my opinion, that even they know that they're talking shit and that they're having trouble keeping it mentally straight in their mind because it's ludicrous. It's nonsensical on the face of it.
This is something we noticed in the non-binary video too. Mm-hmm. Like they can't keep track of it. They say, "Oh, you have to use they pronouns," and then they use she, he promptly.
Yeah, and then they catch themselves and they go, "Oh, see, it's difficult." Well,
but then they'll insist it's not difficult at the same time. They'll say it's not that hard, guys. But then they'll change their mind and say, "Oh, actually, it is hard," and we even mess up.
See, this is why, like, the thing is too is like with like what I would call the medicalist transgender people, who are just like, "Hey, I'm just a woman. Just can you just refer to me as a woman?" That's actually easy. That's like oh, okay. So I just refer to you as her, she, your new name, whatever it might be, Sarah or Connie or whatever. That, like, in your mind, like, even if it's like something that, like, initially you struggle with because of what you're actually seeing and all of the biological markers in your head, making predisposed judgments about this person and knowing like what they are, but like it also knowing what they want to identify as from like the more higher cognitive functions, and in that sense, like, they battle a little bit, but like eventually you're able to, it's at least easier in your mind to just be like, okay, I just need to either pretend or just get used to identifying this person as the opposite sex. With like the non-binary stuff, there's no like mental marker that you can just grab onto. There's not a they or a them in society. There isn't a non-gendered person in our societies that we can easily.
Yeah, there's no non-gendered role to occupy. There's male and there's female, and so yeah, you're right. I think you can switch between the two, and it's not too hard. But there is no non-gender, and there is no wolf social role. There's no deer.
There's no easy benchmark in your brain to point to that you're like I said, your more advanced cognitive brain can easily trick your dumb monkey brain into pointing to instead, because that's all your brain is really doing. With this non-binary stuff, it's just like, what do I do with this? This is nonsense. This is pointless. This is stupid.
How do I treat you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There's no role.
And then you get things like people like, this is why I hated like things like bug gender and whatnot, because people are like, oh, I'm bug for my pronouns, and it's just like the immediate first thought in anyone's head should be, are you saying bugs don't have biological sex? Because that's my first thought, is like, what does this mean? What is this? Everybody uses pronouns as an easy, quick biological sex identifier, even if they're not cognitive of that fact.
Bug is bug. That is all.
Bug is bug. That's it. Bug is now a social role. See, they're going to socially construct a social role for bug.
My pronouns are brain and bullet for what I want going through my head right now.
Yeah, I feel that.
Suicide vendor.
I resonate with that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
But even biological sex is kind of like, in nature, our understanding of biological sex is very different in nature. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So that's kind of why I keep flopping around that term too.
See, okay, this is what I was saying earlier. This is what I'm saying.
Who knows what that means?
Yeah, like, this is what I was saying earlier, though. Like, with her coupling gender to biology, this is like, that's just the slow easing in, and this is her basically flat out saying that she doesn't think biological sex is real. This is all incredibly manipulative. I don't know how to feel about this stuff.
It's carefully in line with the most modern takes. I don't know how they would counter it, honestly, sufficiently.
Let's just keep going.
But yeah, just to kind of bounce off what Pete was saying, I think I would almost argue that euphoria is more important than dysphoria. I spent a lot of my life, I spent a long time thinking, man, it would be really cool to be non-binary. Being non-binary seems so perfect, and I love that concept. But for years and years, I told myself, but I don't hate being perceived as a woman. I'm fine with it. It's okay. In fact, sometimes I like it even. It's not a bad thing. And so I was always like, well, you know, I guess I'm not really non-binary then.
Then, I mean, yeah, wouldn't that follow logically? If you're okay, and in fact, if you sometimes like being perceived as a woman,
that kind of excludes
you. Yeah.
How would you be able to justify what other impetus would cause you to think that you might be non-binary?
Because you deserve euphoria.
No, you don't.
Well, in their mind, they deserve to feel euphoric.
Yeah, but they're wrong and stupid and big dumb poopy idiot asshole stupid heads.
They're self-involved and they're selfish. I mean, really, that's it. And we see some of the selfishness on display a little later.
How much more of this do we have left?
Like a while.
We are really slowly working.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we are.
And so it was that concept of euphoria that helped me come to that understanding and comfort with myself. I was explaining it to my spouse the other day, and it's almost like if dysphoria is that churning feeling in your stomach that makes you feel wrong or terrible, euphoria is a burst of fireworks in your head. It's nothing gives me euphoria like someone seeing me in public.
What's wrong with just feeling normal? Why do you have to jump between the extreme lows and the extreme highs?
Because it's not cool. You can't get internet points by being normal. You got to be unique.
Because that's how you chase the high. Because,
oh my god!
Let's be honest, this is just a high for them.
Yeah, euphoric is in a dopamine hit. That's what they're describing.
Today, I am euphoric, not because of some phony God's blessing.
Because I'm
enlightened by my own intelligence.
I didn't want to yell during this. Oh, I didn't think there would be a reason
it's rough. There's some warped psychology going on here.
Oh my
for sure.
God.
Public and saying, she, sir, ma'am, sir, stubborn. Nothing gives me that fireworks euphoria other than someone not being able to gender me correctly or
what?
Why though?
She gets off on people being confused. Someone else feeling uncomfortable and you enjoy it.
Why does it make you feel good off of unnecessarily uncomfortable and anxious about the situation that you're being forced into right now on your behest?
This is control. They get off on control.
I feel like the first 21 minutes of this was them slowly easing people in to their batshit crazy ideas.
This time, I had a friend correct themselves in person and say they, and say they started to say she, and then they said, oh, they, and then they just kept going. Fireworks, right? Fireworks, and just that feeling of, oh my gosh, this feels right to me, and I think that's so important. Gender euphoria, and
oh my god, this feels right to me. I'm so happy I'm making this person's life miserable.
It really strikes me as they enjoy inconveniencing people and making themselves the center of other people's decisions. Imagine someone has to talk to you and they constantly have to monitor what they're saying.
It's so...
and adjust what they're saying. It's oh yeah, I really like that. I really like making other people...
It's so petty, too.
...confused and uncomfortable and on edge all the time. I really like that. For my sake.
I feel like she had to catch herself and realize that she was supposed to say something to make this justified. So she just softly put in the word this feels right. It feels correct. And it's just that's not a good enough justification here. I don't know. Maybe she's got more to say about this. Let's keep going.
And the same with species euphoria. And so, like, to tie those things in together, there's the thing like being called a good dog, or being told that I'm a good dog, or someone saying that dog over there is my friend, or Cinn, you're such a good wolf, or like or someone identifying me as a werewolf other than myself doing it. It gives me that same fireworks sensation. It gives me that sense of euphoria. And I think if we focus on euphoria instead of dysphoria, it allows for so much more personal exploration. It validates that personal exploration. It's positive reinforcement, and it most importantly encourages a healthy relationship with yourself. Dysphoria says, okay, I'm going to base my identity off of how bad I feel. Euphoria says, I'm going to base.
No,
that's not what dysphoria says
not
at
even
all.
Close.
No.
I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not going to let her keep spouting bullshit after that. That has to be addressed.
It just seems like all of this talk of euphoria is just a really thinly veiled metaphor for sexual pleasure. It seems like the way she's talking about this, it seems like a fetish that she's deriving some kind of weird, abstracted dopamine hit, some abstracted pleasure from this.
It comes across as a paraphilia. I do.
Exactly.
I do think that you're correct, even if they probably wouldn't describe it as sexual. This is why I went with the drug analogy, because I think that's in my mind, that's probably closer to what these people are actually attempting to do, even if they're doing it unconsciously. Is that it's just chasing the dragon, the life game to them. And I was pretty concerned when they opened up and had dysphoria versus euphoria on the same slide, because I was like, those are not opposites to each other. What is going on here? And now that she's just blatantly come out and said like what she thinks dysphoria is, and just completely and utterly mangled the definition and misunderstood it. Oh my god.
Now she does some backpedaling, but let's see what she does with it. I think it's really interesting.
Base my identity off of what makes me feel good. And I think that it's just a healthier way of approaching this. Sorry, go ahead. Pete.
No, I was just agreeing with you. But yeah, I agree. Being called a good dog feels so right and good. My wife is over here laughing at me right now.
But yeah, that's a really good point. I don't think dysphoria is basing your identity off of how bad you feel. That's a good point.
Was that cackling his wife that you heard in the back there?
I think so. I don't know if that sounded. Did that sound female to anybody?
I don't know.
You know what? It could have been worse. It could have been. So,
it could have been a
you know,
dog.
I just want to point out that, like, you know, like Sitzkopf said that, like, oh, there's going to be some backpedaling. I think somebody in the comments immediately called her on that shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they did. Like, that's not what that is. So she's going to try to re-explain it.
But also, I also want to point out that pretty much all three of them said that. Yes, I agree. Yes, I agree. And I was just like, yeah, no shit. All three of you agree with each other.
You formed your ideologies around each other.
As you say, we all know, like, it's blazingly obvious to everybody outside of your little hug box what your little hug box is. We can see it. It's incredibly transparent.
I apologize. So that was a bad way to phrase that. And because I certainly don't want to discredit people's dysphoria either. So maybe a better way to say it is making sure, like, I think dysphoria can help you identify things for yourself. And because I think any kind of feeling like that it's like if you have pain in your body, right? That's a sign that something is not as it should be. And so dysphoria in that sense can be used, but in the same sense, if your knee is hurt, you shouldn't keep wiggling your knee back and forth to feel the pain. You already know where the pain is. You should be seeking what makes your knee feel better, right? Does that make sense?
No, because finding a drug that numbs the knee would accomplish the same goal. it's not what makes it feel better. It's what actually makes it
heals
feel,
it.
Or actually makes it better. Because like I have back problems, and that causes like intense pain in my legs and my hips. Like if I just never felt bad, that wouldn't make the problem go away. That actually probably make it worse. You gotta stretch down. Sometimes even sometimes even feel bad in order for it to feel better. Like that's just a really bad analogy.
Physical therapy is all about doing a little bit of suffering in order to alleviate it later.
I was gonna say you could basically just do what this person is implied, which is just dope yourself up on Vicodin, but that wouldn't be a good thing. This is insane. Not only is like this just bad advice on the face of it, but dysphoria is not just some passing emotion. Dysphoria is usually a descriptor of intense feeling of emotions, usually in the form of either intense sadness, grief,
it's
anger,
distress.
or stress.
Severe distress.
Extreme distress that's continual too. It's chronic. It doesn't, go away and then reappear in the future. It's just constant.
It's not like what just makes you feel bad in the moment. That would be my possible bipolar.
Like situational depression.
I'm joking.
Slightly joking.
Yeah, I'm slightly
situational
joking,
depression. Is it bad to feel sad when sad things happen? No. But when it's chronic, that's how we diagnose it.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a very weird actually dysphoria is a good thing because it tells you what you need to change. It's like
no, it doesn't. Not really
it doesn't. At all.
No, the dysphoria is a general feeling of unwellness. It's not typically targeted in a specific area.
Yeah. Better analogy, maybe.
Dysphoria can be really, really good for helping you identify things that you need to change.
Oh, and he just backs it up.
Dysphoria is knowing what you're not. I like that way of describing it.
Knowing that you're not.
She likes that way of describing it because it backs up her shit worldview.
And if you don't experience dysphoria or euphoria, I'm not agender, so I can't speak to that, but maybe agender is something to look into. I think from people I've spoken to.
Excuse me. Is this just some sort of implication that you think that everybody in the entire world feels dysphoria from time to time?
And euphoria.
What?
If you don't feel gender euphoria or dysphoria, it means you're not
thinking hard enough.
Or you're not thinking hard enough. This is, I was thinking about this as I listened to it. I was thinking about Destiny identifying as non-binary and how I think the category he was really reaching for was more the agender descriptor.
Yeah.
Because he says, I wouldn't care. If I woke up tomorrow as a woman, wouldn't be a big deal.
And that I personally don't get, because
that's probably normal. I think most people
that's how I would feel.
In that sense, if that's the definition, most people are agender. Most people don't have gender identity.
I'm hoping that this I can say this and this won't be a long tangent, but it reminds me of the question I asked in the Discord where I was just like, if there was like some sort of like genetic therapy or whatever that you could do that allowed you to do what she's describing, where you could just freely switch between the two sexes, would you do it? And I got a lot of responses from people that I wouldn't people I would not say are like bisexual or gay. In fact, I got quite a few surprising straight responses from people being like, "Yeah, I would try that. That would seem fine. I wouldn't mind being like a woman for a day because
they just squat over a mirror for 2 hours."
I mean, it would be a new experience, and people tend to want new experiences. They want to see what other people feel. It's usually that's why we read fiction, right? We read fiction because we, in some sense, want to experience something new.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things that was a takeaway from that, most importantly, is that it was not permanent. I remember Gabbles said that he would do it, and it was basically just like, yeah, why not? That sounds fun.
See, I would kind of have a problem if I if I woke, like what you said about what Destiny said, if I woke up and I was suddenly a woman, I would be horrified. Is that not? Am I the only one who would feel that way?
No,
I would be shocked if I were the
I'd be
opposite
horrified
sex.
if I was.
Because I'd be like, "What's going on?" I'd be more like concerned about how it happened.
See, the thing is, I don't think either response is incorrect, which is part of the reason why I also remember asking that question. Because the thing is that it's just how people easily adapt to things, or how adverse some people are to the forms of change. I don't think either response is incorrect, but I do think it's interesting, at least on a quizzical level, how much of us are willing to be adventurous in that sense, and how many of us wouldn't like that would be a change too far. And again, I don't think either response is incorrect or wrong.
It makes me wonder, this is something I've thought before, and maybe it's a little spicy, but when it comes to actual sex transition, actual surgery, my guess is most people are not terribly pleased with the results, because it tends to have a lot of complications and a lot of difficulty along with it, infections and lots of surgery and complications and things of that nature. And I think sometimes people will retort and say, well, so many people who go through it end up happy. And I wonder if it's not so much that they're happy at the other end, but that humans as a species are highly adaptable to difficult circumstances, especially if it's something you've rationalized yourself into. Something you've told yourself, I want this, I want this, I want this. Then you get it. And it's not what you expected. It's not the way you expected it to be. But are you going to say, oh, it was all a mistake? Or are you just going to plug along? Be like, this was worth it. This was worth it. And you rationalize it.
Oh, you're talking about the initial shock and denial phase.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that's probably a good number of them. I mean, there's no way to test it because it's a form of self-delusion and you can't really test that. But humans put up with a lot of trauma. They adapt to it. They put up with it.
If we apply the 5 stages of grief here, she's been in the denial phase for 20 years now. What's the next one? The next one's anger, right? What do you suppose that one's gonna look like?
Anger at anti-kins. Anti-Otherkin. There's a whole other panel about anti-Otherkin.
Oh boy.
Pretty funny.
Or maybe we're misreading this. Maybe we're reading this as denial, but in fact, she's actually moved past that phase and moved quickly through the anger phase. And now this is actually just 20 years of the bargaining phase. And convincing people that her decision here was not actually a bad thing.
Well, at least I don't think anything they've done is medical.
Yeah.
That's the saving grace. A lot of this is not. Though I've heard there are non-binaries who do medical things, which
means that hopefully the depression phase will be very short.
Just horrifies me. The idea that you can identify as non-binary and then get hormones and surgery. Mm-hmm. Oh god.
That's fucked up.
It's messed up. For sure.
A lot of people who experience being agender experience an absence of that euphoria and dysphoria. But again, that's not an experience I can personally speak to, so someone else would have to speak to that one.
I'm not agender either, but yeah, that does sound like a agender experience to me.
Yeah, on the non-binary spectrum, I'm more like gender fuck as opposed to agender or gender fluid or whatever term we want. Gender fuck is a personal favorite, but
whatever one we want to use, just whatever one's most applicable at the second.
Whichever one has the most shock value.
Very casual term you use to describe an intensely personal commitment, right? Most people, when they make...
Not even a commitment. They can change it any moment.
Yeah, it's like the phases of the moon, man.
Yeah.
It's like changing your shirt every morning. Mm-hmm. It's very disrespectful, I think, to people who really struggle with this.
It's all terrible.
That's all I can think about.
It's all terrible.
I feel like we're going through the 5 stages of grief during this.
Could be.
At first we were calling this irresponsible. Now we're calling this disgusting and insensitive.
I've gotten to the acceptance phase.
You accept that you're otherkin.
Yeah, I'm a dog or
Your
a cat
gender is a
or
dog
whatever.
now.
I don't know what's the moon phase right now. I'm a ladybug.
My gender is definitely
Yeah.
cat, and my kin is definitely cat. I'm sorry.
You know what the worst part is
Same
going to
thing.
be? Dan's going to make that joke, and we're going to be accused of being the flippant and irresponsible, insensitive ones.
Yeah, and then we'll send them the wiki. Be like, it's right here.
Yeah, excuse me.
There's an entry for it and everything. It's official. It's canon. It's in the doctrine.
It's canon to the Bible.
It would be the most insane thing in the Bible.
Then you use the one PG-13
The
F
gender
word.
Bible.
Yeah, that was my PG-13 F word. Get your own panel for the fuck word.
So I just want to point out that I wasn't mishearing. They did actually call it gender fuck.
Yes, it's a thing.
Yeah. Shock value.
Weird.
It means you're fucked up, but it's cool. See?
What? Yeah, you know what? I'm not. Just keep moving.
Today's gender, the color yellow.
It's a good gender.
Nope, I couldn't do it. All right.
Yellow gender.
Oh my.
Is that insensitive against Asians?
I'm gender fucked. I'm just disease ridden and broken right now. Please love me for who I am and what I refuse to accept.
Okay, what colors are we identifying as right now? Go.
Salmon.
I'm definitely magenta gender.
I'm black for all of the things I want to paint right now.
A nice mauve. A nice warm mauve.
Whatever color my face turns after I hang myself.
Mauve.
Grayish blue.
Mauve. I'm sorry. I know it's not a Boston word, but it just sounds like one. Mauve.
Gender slip and slide. I like that as well. All right, Peter,
Even
we
they
get on
make
this
jokes
panel.
about
We'll go ahead and move
this.
to the next, or not panel, screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so we want to take a second and touch on neopronouns and xenogender, which is
this is our favorite.
really Ken concept. Do you want to talk about this, Peter? Do you want me?
I changed my mind, Cav. I changed my mind. Where's the gun? Where's the bullet? I'm tapping out. Oh no!
Look, we covered this 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, and I distinctly chose to not be here for that.
But it's so good. You can be pup self.
They're doing neo pronouns. Oh,
you can be xenogender. And again, I ask, what's the difference between gender and kin? I can't figure it out.
Neither can these people.
I don't think they know if I ask them.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I referred to them as people.
They're very offensive.
Neither can these filthy animals.
Filthy, ungodly animals.
They just
soulless. They'll cease to exist in the end times.
See, it really is just like how Dan will describe this at the very beginning. They're just taking every little thing they feel like could make them special in some way, and just slapping it onto them.
It's like stickers in a lunchbox.
And the worst part is they're just doing this thing where they're grabbing concepts from every circle around them. So they're grabbing trans stuff, and now they're grabbing neopronouns, and now they're gonna, they're just grabbing from all these circles that are tangentially related, but not directly,
and with no regard.
So it's very culturally appropriative. They're borrowing this language. It's not language meant for this.
And borrowing language to what end? Like they're playing with these concepts to what end? Just a role play online, honestly, or just a role play with friends in public? Because there's not going to be a boss that refers to them as a fucking wolf. Are you kidding me? I would fire that fucking person.
I'd be like, I don't hire wolves.
If they came up to me and said, "Excuse me, when you're speaking to clients about me, refer to me as pup or pup self," and I would say, "You can refer to yourself as fucking unemployed." Get the fuck out of here.
This just highlights the concept that gender is really personal and intimate to each person. And that, so xenogender and neopronouns, although there's, chat is happening really fast. It's hard to keep up. I'm glad you guys are so excited though. This is very nice. So xenogender exists outside of the gender binary, and so it creates it's a more custom personal experience from person to person. There are some pronouns that are what we might call like more common, and that you see more often. So things like z zers is becoming a little more common. And I think using a flexible amount of, and I think flexible pronouns are totally okay. That's something that I was going to say. So a couple of examples that we've listed here is pup, pup, pup self. That's one that the three of us wolves have all talked about amongst ourselves really liking personally. And auxiliary
like
pronouns is a really good term for them as well. And V ver self and AM air self. And I see a couple people in the chat saying something about like, and again, the chat's moving a little quick, but I think what I'm kind of reading is this idea of that neopronouns are difficult because they're hard to remember. And I totally agree with that. But one thing I would like to kind of make clear, as with many things with the trans experience, like I find euphoria when people correct themselves often. That like if someone were to slip up and address me as she, but then a second later I say, oh, I'm sorry, they, I'm not going to be upset that you corrected. I'm going to be like, oh, they thought to correct. That's so kind. Now, obviously, don't make a big show of it and like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh, I really fucked that up. Don't turn it into a whole debacle.
In what situation are you where a person is talking about you like you're not there? Like what situation is that?
Yeah, I'm still confused about that.
I think we talked about that in the non-binary show.
Yes, we did. Because why? Why would you use pronouns in front of someone?
Oh.
This is a way to control conversations outside of your scope.
You know what, guys? I can't stand Cav. She's such a bitch.
Excuse me, meow self.
Hey, excuse me, it's meow self.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please correct your pronouns.
Yeah. Hey, give her that euphoria.
Meow self is such a bitch.
Oh yeah, baby.
But no, seriously, what would you ever do that?
See, this is people on the internet too much.
Yeah.
Okay, there are situations I can think of where like I'm talking about like stories or whatever that like I hear from somebody who's in like the same Discord call, and they'll just like it'll be something along the lines of like, oh yeah, me and Danimal went to X, and while we were there, he found blank. That's the only time I can think that somebody will be there to hear me gender them or use the wrong pronouns.
Yeah. But it's not common. It's just not.
Yeah, and even then, like it's like a pointless fuck up. Who cares? And
again, I reiterate that the fact that this person gets pleasure out of it is really creepy. Just the rush of pleasure of someone realizing they committed a faux pas and are scrambling to correct themselves on my behalf. It's like, oh yeah, be embarrassed, be afraid that I'm going to call you out. Like it's just a hammer that you can hit people with. If they misgender you, you can frickin' get them banned from places.
I don't believe them for a second when they say, oh, that person was so nice to correct themselves. Bullshit. I know it's about power. You know it's about power, and the person you did it to knows it's about like this power fantasy you're on. You don't describe something as inane as that as like a euphoric feeling. That's an intense feeling of pleasure or emotions. That's what euphoria is. Maybe we're being too harsh to them. Maybe like much like dysphoria, they just don't understand what euphoria is actually.
Possible. I don't know. It's the fact that they're expressing pleasure at it is still disconcerting to me. Possible. I don't feel that pleasure when people are embarrassed or like tripping over themselves trying to address me properly. I don't feel pleasure. I would feel sad for them and want to help them. I would want to make things easier for them. I have a difficult first name. It's just different generally. And when I interact with people in like restaurants and stuff and they need to have my name, I give them a fake name because I don't want them to have to stumble over and try to spell it. And like, I just want it to be convenient and easy for them.
Is it Beulah? Is that your name? Is it
Beulah?
Not.
Beulah would
I'm going to call you Beulah.
Beulah would be a usual name. Mine is like totally made up.
You guys are talking about weird names with a guy named Gemini Samini.
No, actually, my name is Danimal.
Oh no!
Doxed.
It's been a very confusing relationship, I have to say.
Well, it's obviously because you're the same person, and Danimal's just using a very, very good voice change.
That's right.
You know what would give me an intense feeling of euphoria from an interaction with a person?
What?
It's if a person just came up to me and they just had a wad of cash and they said, "Hey, here's $500, no strings attached. Have a good day. Bye."
You know what would give me an intense feeling of euphoria? Actually accomplishing something. Actually doing something. You know, like maybe reaching a goal that I've been having, or building something with my own hands, or, you know, maybe a major life event like getting married, or, you know, something like that. That's usually something that fills you with dysphoria. Euphoria.
Or even something even more quaint or simple, Danimal, like
hey, you know, different strokes for different folks. And for me, it's many strokes. Back and forth.
I'm back.
Gay sex.
Never leave again. As soon as you left, it got really gay.
It sure did.
But the only thing keeping this
straighten...
stream from being a bunch of homos.
Hold on a second. Gemini, you're one of the gay guys in here, and you're upset.
And he's uncomfortable. That says something, doesn't it?
It was terrible, God.
I'm sorry. I'm here. I'm going to keep it pure from now on.
How is it the super straight guy is upsetting the gay guy here? We talked about gay sex.
Because we ain't hoes.
You're just upsetting no one.
We're just going to learn about neopronouns now, and everyone can calm down.
I'm sorry, okay? I'm a furry. I can't help myself.
But yes, ultimately pronouns are for the trans person's comfort, not other people's. And so,
isn't that the truth, though? It's for them, not for you.
I was about to say, is that a Freudian slip? Is that like an actual, like, honest to God Freudian slip she just did there?
You know, most pronouns are for the convenience of others, not yourself. The fact that I'm addressed as she is for the convenience of others, not to validate any of my own feelings.
Pronouns are an identifier. All language is held in common in that it's used by everybody to understand each other when we're trying to convey ideas or thoughts.
So that a stranger on the street can point to me and say she is doing something. Like, they don't need to know me in any personal way. They can just know.
You know, as somebody who works in a very technical field, do you know how annoying it is trying to explain just this kind of stuff to a layman in a way that they can understand it? Do you know how much I would pay to have like an easy set of language, like shortcuts that I could use on people to easily convey the concepts that I'm talking about to them? I would mug a planet.
For sure. But it's all from Tumblr, as you can see on this chart. It's Tumblr's fault. Boy, what isn't Tumblr's fault at this point?
It's like a rotting corpse
making
at this
sure
point,
that
too.
We are trying to be conscious. And that's why things with like neopronouns, really good example of why, and I'm a bad example of this because I don't think I have it in mind right now, but why it's really important to list your pronouns, for everybody to list your pronouns, whether you're cis or whether you're trans. Like, having that commonality of listing your pronouns somewhere easy to find, right on, like usually right under your name, right next to your name.
If you start demanding that everyone put their pronouns in their bio, you make it required to interact on the website, and you have no limitations on what those pronouns can be, you're going to get people like me who will immediately write in both sections the phrase, fuck off, we're full, for my pronouns.
I think she's right. I'm going to list off my pronouns right now. My pronouns are shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits.
Beautiful.
Call back.
Beautiful. Call back.
Gonna say, like, what do these people expect? That 4chaners or people who just have no regards for their special little worldview are not gonna be just total belligerent assholes to them? So many people would immediately do that on Twitter, though, like unironically.
Oh my god, yeah.
And then
Does it not? I feel like, and this is something that they are encouraging teachers in my district to do now, is to go around the room and have everyone report their pronouns. Now, obviously, I don't do it, and I don't think most people do it, but I feel like if you did that verbally, especially, not just right, but verbally, is that not going to pressure people to adopt things that distinguish themselves? Be like, oh, am I going to be another he, she? Like, everyone in the room is going to be he, she. You want to stick out. You want to be different. You're going to find something else.
And especially if somebody who's maybe higher on the social hierarchy in a school, which we know that social hierarchies are very important when you're a kid in school and being in the good graces of the top ones. If a person that's high on that social hierarchy starts using all the pronouns, the xeno pronouns and whatever, do you think that maybe some people are going to be following that?
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to say, oh, that's cool. I never heard of that. I'm going to try that. And then everyone is using different pronouns. And something that I don't think I mentioned before is when you're talking about someone to a stranger, or let's say you're talking to someone about a stranger to them, right? So you're talking to your roommate about your friend that you have that they've never met. And you start using pronouns that are like or zer. And you say, well, my friend so-and-so, Zer is going to the store. And your roommate goes, wait, who? Who's going to the store? I thought you were talking about so-and-so. Like,
yeah.
Neopronouns add a layer of confusion in useful situations semantically, where you need to refer to someone who is an unknown party. Because you're not going to spend 5 minutes explaining to this person, like, your friend's pronouns in order to communicate with them. This just doesn't happen. You're going to call them he, she. So it's just adding layers of garbage on top of garbage.
That's useless, ultimately. I mean, how's this stuff going to age?
Yeah.
I predict we're not going to have 50-year-olds going around demanding to be called Zer. I predict that's not going to happen.
They're going to get tired of it. They're going to get tired of it. Of trying to enforce it. It's exhausting.
Or they're not going to have anybody that's going to enforce it for them, because who's going to stick around with a friend until they're 50, reinforcing their pronouns, honestly. I mean, that's tiring in and of itself. I wouldn't do that. I'd be like, you know what? We're good.
The more we normalize that, the easier it is. Because if I can't remember your pronouns but I can just glance right above at your pronouns and see them right there and next to your name, it's a lot easier for me to remember that, right? Like I can be like, oh yeah, of course they use pups pronouns.
Congratulations, you have identified the thing that most people would just do by looking at the person generally. You identified correctly the reason why people use pronouns and why they should be simple. And instead you have added a unnecessary layer of complication to it for the sake of feel-goodism.
Yeah, it used to be your nickname and your profile could kind of hint at it. Or maybe the way you talked. And if you're really bothered by being misgendered, you'd add some kind of more explicit.
I don't know.
Most people online don't care.
Yeah. Most
care.
People in general don't care. Your pronouns are not a special signifier of what you are as a person. What are these people's hobbies? Do they have hobbies?
Probably not.
Is this
gender
hobby?
is
this is the hobby.
Yeah,
Gender
this is
their
the
hobby, and
I cannot think of a more boring individual than somebody who just like, oh, what do you do for fun? Oh, I think about how all of the ways that people had to like correct themselves to properly gender me, and how good that makes me feel. And I'm just like, so what? You don't watch TV, or you don't play video games, or no, I'm not interested in that stuff. I'm just interested in feeling good about who I am, because it's so good that I understand that I am a wolf. Actually, yeah, okay. I'm gonna go like to your next door neighbor. I hope he's got like crack or something on him, because this is incredibly boring, and I'm hoping that that's gonna make this at least somewhat interesting to do right now.
Yeah, we're back.
And yeah, it takes some time and it takes work. But we're gonna give a couple examples of ways that you can practice. And pronoun rules are also a great thing. Yes. Love.
Yeah, I've been really grateful that the Othercon server has pronoun roles. It's been fantastic.
What do you do if someone has a gender that's not listed? You have to like make a custom role.
How long do you guys think it will be before like Discord, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and like just all these social media sites add a special section to every single one of them that like it will require users to fill it in with something, at least something that's just the pronoun section, and it will just be big and blazoned on your profile. It will eclipse your nickname so that people won't be able to read your nickname, but they'll be able to read what pronouns you are.
But a more sickening thought. Okay, follow me down this road. What if you get to select your pronoun on every one of these, and you type it in or select it or whatever? Probably type it in, because you might have an individual gender, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever someone makes a comment on your video, all they have to do is like type in the word pronoun, and it'll automatically be replaced with whatever pronoun you choose. So they don't even have to remember. They just have to type so-and-so pronoun, and it just like automatically fills in. It's like a data field. When's that going to happen?
You know, the funny thing is that it's funny that you bring up this thought experiment, because I think they would hate that, because it would undo all of this careful crafting that they have created.
On the other hand, it would create euphoria, because it would never be a mistake.
Yeah. Or
you just ban the words he or she or anything, and the computer program automatically replaces those with data field pronoun.
Mm-hmm.
See, though, here's the thing, though. It's important to note that she never, or they, I hope she got off of that. Yeah, hope you're getting off to that. I hope you got a real sense of euphoria. But they never brought up the idea, or that like they got euphoria from someone just saying it correctly. They only made a point about if somebody mistaked it and then corrected themselves. They didn't make a special point about it ever being the case that they got euphoria from someone correctly doing it off the bat. That never came up, meaning that it must not happen.
Yeah, it's weird. And it goes towards the theory of it's about control.
Yeah, and so the idea that you're throwing out there, I'm certain they would hate that, because then they'd complain that like, oh, this is worse than like when millennials didn't have to learn phone numbers anymore because they just had caller ID and stuff in their phones that made it easy for people to look up contact information and whatnot. And like, I remember how many people said I was so lazy for not memorizing phone numbers. And now I just think that's ridiculous. Like, if you told me like, oh, you don't know your friend's phone number, it's like, no, because that's stupid. It's just a series of dumb numbers. I don't know what these fucking numbers are. Why would I memorize that? That's like asking me to memorize their IP address for their computer.
There were teachers in this training who said they have spreadsheets for student pronouns.
My God. My God.
Can you imagine? And as they said it, I'm like, hell no.
Yeah, no.
Never. I'm not doing that.
For some fad.
I have enough on my plate.
For some
I'm
fad.
not making a spreadsheet.
It's a fad. I'm just going to say it. It's a fucking fad.
You put more effort into like memorizing pronouns than I do, like creating D&D campaigns, like entire not just a session, a whole ass campaign. That's a whole ass campaign's worth of work.
Like I gotta learn kids' names while they're wearing masks. It's hard enough. Like memorizing who's who where I can barely see their face.
The fact that they had to make a spreadsheet for this, something that I do to memorize like input devices that I need to keep track of for my my stuff at my job for like industrial work and whatnot, just so I remember what devices is talking to what. That on the same level of that, somebody's making an equal spreadsheet to memorize whose pronouns are what.
Oh, and it was even worse too, because they had to do another layer of data for what they should use with their parents.
Oh my God.
Because, right, some kids, they want to be referred to as a certain pronoun, but they don't want their parents to know. So you have to actually have two sets to use in two separate situations.
Hey, you guys can go ahead and finish out the video, but I might have to get going.
That's fine.
Animal with your life and shit. You fucking normie.
I know, I'm so sorry.
I think, actually, I'm going to skip ahead a bit here and see. Oh, we have the therapy part.
Oh, I'm going to miss out on that. Oh, well. You know what? I'll just say my bit on that is that they talk about therapists, only seeking therapists that are going to be viewing it through the humanistic approach. So that means like validating your life existence and not questioning or seeking where these feelings are coming from, like somebody from a behavioralist school, like a B.F. Skinner, which, Kav, I'm sure you've read a lot of B.F. Skinner, right?
I know what you're referring to. Let me see.
But yeah, I mean, it's fucking insane that they're dissuading people from seeking therapists that will do nothing but validate you. So I
don't know. Do you want to break this actually up into two parts, Kav?
Nah, you guys go ahead and finish it out.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how much longer I can devote to this either. Too is my problem.
I think that's actually the last slide. Really.
Well, you boys and girls have fun.
All right, I'll try to truck through this then.
So let's try to get through the last slide. The very final slide is just them talking about some website where you can try out pronouns, and that's really boring. And who cares?
Love you guys.
Love
Bye,
you,
Dan.
man. No homo.
We love you.
I'm a straight guy. I have to say it, okay? Just so the audience knows.
Let's try to get this. Yeah, because this last part is a doozy.
You mean this?
Is that concept
of
catering, of
always.
I'm gonna skip it.
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of good, like, great things that you can do or find to affirm your non-human gender. A lot of therapists will encourage otherkin and therian identities. I mean, unfortunately, we do often have to fully explain the concept to them, but once it's explained, most therapists that I've heard about or interacted with will encourage it. And thank you, Espeon. And then it's also, especially like here at Othercon or in other non-human servers or on Twitter or whatever, it's good to find friends who can support you, and you can find people you trust and say, hey, I want to try these other pronouns. Could we do this? Like, could you use these pronouns for me? Like, maybe even in private, you can just try it, ease your way into the water.
That's right. Find very manipulatable people around you who you can coerce into whatever situation you want.
I just want to imagine here, right, though, like they go and they seek out like a therapist, right, and then they start talking with their therapist and they start talking about how they're otherkin, and like the therapist is like, I've never heard of that. Can you kind of like explain it to me or something? And they start like explaining it. And in reality, the therapist isn't paying attention. They're like already on their computer, like looking this shit up and like seeing what it is online and like seeing what it is and like what the kind of things that it could incur if like they tell this person that like, listen, you need to probably stop doing what you're doing. Instead, they're just sitting there and like they take their glasses off and they take their fingers and they pinch their nose and they're just like, if I like try to tell this lunatic to like fix his life, all he's gonna do is complain to all of his friends about how terrible of a therapist I am, and then they're gonna spread it around, and a bunch of people who don't know anything about me and don't know why they don't recommend me are just gonna think I'm a terrible therapist, and this is gonna ruin my job. You think that's what?
I don't envy therapists at all now.
Well, yeah, because all they have to do, like, when I was recommended therapy, and when I was recommended it, they didn't say, "Oh, go to somebody who will encourage you." When somebody recommended me a therapist, they specifically said they recommended a therapist specifically who specialized in the things that they thought I needed. That was the recommendations I got.
It should be someone who challenges you.
Yeah, it's not somebody who will just agree with everything I say, but rather somebody who will specializes in the things that they think I'm suffering from.
Rook, about therapists. When I talked to my therapist about it, I first started by just talking about how I am a very big fan of werewolves and like they mean a lot to me. And then after a couple sessions, I explained like I do identify as a werewolf and I identify as non-human. And he was like, "Oh, that's great, and that's a really cool way to express yourself and to process your thoughts and emotions."
Agreed. For me, I have compound PTSD, which we're dipping a little into mental health for a second. But for me, I have often spoken with my therapist in the sense of, identifying as a wolf often can help me mentally process and spiritually process. And
so wait.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
You're basically lying to these people. You're not telling them the truth at all. You're like giving them like the most cursory of information. The therapist is like, oh, like they're just like, they're just trying to express themselves. This is normal. This is healthy. Like I shouldn't dissuade this. You're not truly giving them the full picture. You're only giving them the small little tidbits that you want them to see, so that they don't go, "This is bad. You need to stop this. This is just hedonism."
Compound PTSD.
What does that mean?
How does this help that?
Because Kava, what they're doing, you see, is they're chasing euphoria. And if all you're doing is just constantly thrill seeking, you don't have to you're never thinking about the things that make you feel bad.
Aye. So you just never resolve those feelings. You just have PTSD forever.
Yep, these people might be high functioning depressants.
God.
My therapist has always, thank you, PTSD is a rough. Because of that, my therapist has always said that is a great way for me to quote unquote process my emotions. And like, there's certainly something that I can relate to in being a werewolf with also being a person who has CPTSD. And some of the mood swings, for example, or having a rise up of anger that feels very werewolf in nature and things. But yes, I can agree. I've had actually two different.
Oh, so you're bipolar. You're bipolar and you're ignoring the symptoms of it. I have a swelling of anger, and I classify this in my mind that this must be my werewolf self, not the obvious bipolar that I must be suffering from.
And it's a healthy way to express it.
What if these therapists are just maybe they're just like going to the most ill-equipped, unprepared therapist possible that they can find, and like these people are just like, I know there's something wrong with this person, but like I can't ascertain the nature of it yet, and so like they're just trying to just like let them spout their bullshit for a while. And then like they start to ascertain like the nature of what's going on, and then like they figure it out. And then like the moment they figure it out and they start challenging these people, they find a new therapist.
Yep, and they're actually going to recommend that in a second.
Oh, they do!
They do.
Different therapists who have been supportive of my kin experience and have said, that's great. You know, if wearing things with wolves on them, if identifying yourself as a wolf, if calling yourself a werewolf helps your mental experience, then you should do that. Now, that said, obviously there are going to be shit therapists out there. But we just like to put this on here to say, like, good therapists are encouraging this kind of thing. Therapists who are interested in catering to, like,
you know, the only people I've ever heard use the phrase, there are shit therapists out there, are usually people who have problems that are unresolved, and like they just didn't like those therapists because those therapists told them the truth. Now, granted,
it's frequent.
Now, that's not to say that there aren't actually like examples of bad therapists, but I think in most cases it's just going to the wrong type of therapist. It's going to a therapist usually, like, when I hear this, it's like it's somebody like with like a different mindset or an antiquated or mindset and stuff. So usually a lot of people clash with their therapist on personal belief systems or politics or whatever, and so they want somebody who is more in line with their ideology or whatever. But that doesn't necessarily mean that therapist is bad. It's just they wanted to address these issues in a different way that more than likely would have fixed the problem, but wouldn't have fixed the problem in the way that a person wanted. And so those people don't stick with that therapist; they go to another one, and then like it's a different mindset therapist. But even then, most of the time I've heard that they still get the problem fixed, because there are multiple ways to deal with these problems. Because at the end of the day, it's just the main thing that should be focused on is just trying to fix the thing. Well, ideologies be damned. You know, you could approach the issue from any kind of ideological perspective. Your actual way that you do it might be different, but ultimately the cure is the same.
I don't really have anything to add. Like I've been to like a very affirming therapist before. Didn't really do anything negative or positive for me. I don't think that there's a lot of value in people telling you that what you're already doing is fine.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of... I don't have much experience going to therapy because I typically consider it... In my experience, it seems like it's been a waste of time. Because nothing was ever really resolved. But I do think that there are therapists out there who will basically tell their patients what they want to hear instead of actually performing, or rather engaging in an analysis of what their patients are describing and doing and actually figuring out the root causes. They'll just say all the right things so that they feel better about themselves. The patients, and then that's how, of course, the therapists get paid.
Yeah. Personally never had any therapy, but it does strike me as if your outset attitude is, I'm going to find a therapist who affirms what I do. It's a lack of curiosity about how the things you're doing might actually be impacted by the trauma that you've experienced. If you think you have PTSD, like, good Lord, you should be looking for someone to find the root of that and find out, is the way I express my identity and the way I think about my gender, is all that impacted by that? I think that's a worthy discussion, because those are things that impact your life.
think that a major issue is, in terms of affirmation, is narcissism. Not just as a character trait, but as a personality disorder. Because narcissists will demand affirmation from other people. They will constantly demand that you tell them that they're doing well, that they're doing good. Tell me that I'm good over and over and over.
Tell me it was good. Tell me I'm good. Tell me I'm good. Tell me that was good. Tell me.
And I think that as a society, we tend to be very
open.
I guess we get maternal in our affections. We think everything. We get very overly empathetic in the way that an overbearing mom gets overly empathetic, in the sense that we like to say everything's fine, you're not the problem, everyone else is the problem, but you're okay the way you are. And I think that's fine if you're talking to 5-year-olds or little kids who don't know any better. But if you say that over and over to adults who are capable of making their own rational choices, then it doesn't have the same. It's not suitable for people of that age at all. And so constantly affirming people like that, affirming bad decisions, bad habits, because humans are creatures of habit, and if you can change habits for the better, you've substantially changed a person. Constantly affirming bad actions, bad habits, and bad choices does more harm than good, because it feeds into people's delusions about about their identity, how they act, and how they ought to be. And I think that dismantling a person's delusions is very important to helping them self-actualize if they can't, because they are effectively blinded or crippled by narcissism. And if you just leave narcissism, constantly, if you leave it unchecked, or if you constantly affirm it, you get this stuff, what we're looking at right now. Because it's like people weren't really told no in a meaningful sense. Does that track? I noticed that a lot of these people tend to be of a certain socioeconomic status. Their parents seem like the kind of parents to be very, very liberal-minded, very, perhaps not hands-off or laissez-faire, but very, very hippie-dippy parents almost. Parents that didn't really take as much of an active role, as active a role as they ought to have taken in their child's development.
Well, I think there's an alternative way to interpret this, because in reality, if you think economic status, kids who are more likely to be neglected and not handheld are going to be in the poor sector. These could also be kids who were raised in poverty. I mean, she mentioned she was in Appalachia, I think.
Yeah.
This could be someone who, as a child, grew up with not a lot of supervision, grew up in poverty, grew up with not a lot of attention. Maybe some kind of trauma, maybe something happened. And as a result, ever since, this has been an unfilled desire that people, are attentive and care for her and give her the affirmation she needs. And she's been sort of seeking that ever since. So I think that's another possible explanation here.
That's entirely possible. And it's not like I would blame that person for that, obviously. I think that would be incredibly unfair to anybody who was not given that much attention as a child, because children do need attention, right?
I think we only have a few minutes left of the video before it gets to the last slide, and then there's nothing after that. So
thank God, let's go.
Let's try it.
Oh,
wait, how many more minutes do we have, roughly speaking? 5, 10?
Five-ish minutes, I think.
Okay, wonderful.
Like Kit said, what your goals in therapy are. If your goal is to come in and say, I am working on confidence, and me thinking, if I come in and say to my therapist, I want to work on my personal self-confidence, also identify as a werewolf, and dressing and referring to myself as a werewolf helps me feel more confident, then a good therapist is going to say, then think of yourself as a werewolf, because obviously that makes you feel more confident, right? So yeah, just sorry to pop in there, Pete.
I don't mean to interrupt so soon, but if pretending to be a werewolf made you confident, then why did you have to go to therapy? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's a great question.
No, that was great. I love it. And then, finding ways that your gender and your kin experience overlap and exploring those and celebrating those is a great practice. I like to draw myself as my kin type in different gender presentations or with a different body, or, just to explore different ways that they connect and interact and make me feel good. I refer to my body hair as my fur. I like to wear a collar. Right now I'm wearing a shirt with a howling wolf on it, and I'm wearing my tail.
Oh god.
But yeah, expressing yourself through art and through your clothes and through the things that you call yourself and you ask your your trusted friends and family to refer to you as are great ways to affirm these feelings and to help you feel great.
In other words, it's all aesthetics. It's just purely stuff you wear, how you look, pictures you draw, pronouns you use. That's it. It's so shallow.
In my experience, so one thing I wanted to mention too, when I say subtle integration on here too, so I am a professional. So I'm actually in the process of starting a nonprofit for a community center for my town. I've worked in domestic violence for the past several years before this. I am what people would consider to be, quote unquote, a professional. But I still have found ways
to
dress to my personal identity.
No retard.
What is life? What is the meaning of life? Is it
she gets to talk about how she integrates her furry self.
Is the meaning of life these scissors that I'm holding on?
What if her business is just like a fake ass massage parlor where she just like you guys remember the Twitch deer lady?
Yeah.
What if she runs a business where she specializes in erotic Otherkin themed massage, where she like rubs people down and makes animal noises in their ears?
Why would you say that?
That sounds like ASMR from hell.
Why would you do this?
You're so mean, Tenny.
You are all thinking about it now. You are all.
Is Doe gonna be there too? Because Doe's voice is from hell.
Oh!
It sounds like this. Excuse me, I'm dear gender.
I'm gonna stab myself. I'm gonna stab myself in the throat with these scissors I'm holding.
So things like shirts that are patterned with paw prints. One outfit that I have that I particularly love in the autumn is it's like brown pants and like a cream colored shirt and like a red overshirt that are like the colors of my fur, and then like taking a scarf and wrapping it around. I have a certain like furry scarf that I can wrap around my neck that kind of feels almost like a wolf ruff.
She's rambled on about a lot of pointless shit, but like this in particular, like I get that she thinks that she's describing how her choice of clothes makes her feel closer to her wolf self, but all I can think is, bitch, nobody gives a shit about your fashion choices.
You know what would make her really connect with her wolf self? If she walked on all fours, pooped on the floor, and sniffed people's butts. That would do it.
Careful, some of these fucking people actually do that shit.
I guarantee you, somebody else would be into one of those things.
Yeah.
Don't remind me.
Too late.
Oh.
phantom feeling.
Cope. I just love, by the way, because you pointed it out, Kof, the phantom feeling. I'm glad to know that we're now culturally appropriating words from ASMR as well.
Still think a lot of this just seems like she's making all this up to compensate, to cover up the fact that she's secretly like getting off to all of this. This feels like a fetish, but it's like it's as if you were to describe a fetish in the most non-erotic way possible.
You know, I wanted to give them...
It makes me feel good. It's like, how?
I wanted to give them the maximum level of benefit of the doubt, but like after all this, I kind of agree 100% with Tenny.
Because I've got that feeling of being a big werewolf, right? And so it's like, yeah, it gives me that good positive. And I usually keep my nails long because I like the clicky clacky of the nails when cause it makes me think of, dog nails. Yeah, all kinds of different stuff like that. Right now I'm in a fuzzy red sweater. I almost put my tail on, but then I didn't have a good loop to wear it on today. So, but I'm also in, colors of my kin and like those kind of things. It creates a positive association with yourself and it promotes that positive identity with yourself, which is really what all of this is about.
Yes, exactly.
Especially since we can't do surgery yet.
Can I mention that I'm really happy that she clarified that it went through a loop and not was another kind of tail?
Remember, kids.
You were afraid it was the other kind.
Remember, kids, if you pull a furry's tail and you hear an audible popping sound, you've made a grave mistake.
Just don't touch furry tails.
I mean, that's a good rule in general, I think.
It's a life rule.
Also, similar to your scarf that you mentioned, I specifically learned how to tie a larger knot in a necktie so that I would get the same fur ruff feeling from wearing a necktie.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure that.
Oh, hold on. I was joking about the ASMR stuff earlier, but like now, legitimately, like that's what that is. Like the wanting to have the nails long so it makes the weird sounds. The wanting to have like the scarves that have a very specific kind of feeling things. That's like an ASMR thing. I'm not even like fucking joking about that.
It's also an autism thing.
I mean, yes.
I'm sure these furries would know quite a lot about wolves and knots.
I just
be quiet,
like,
Tenny.
What these people literally like. These people literally go on the internet though. They just like look at every little popular fad of the month and they just absorb that into their personality. I can't imagine like somebody who's like really clued in on this stuff, like just how many other references to other little things that they might have noticed while the entire time these fucking maniacs were talking.
Well, we're almost at the end.
Oh, please, home stretch.
Yeah, it's just you got to learn to like hack yourself in, like hack the feelings into your life, hack the things that promote that sensation. Wearing your hair up on both sides of your head. I've seen people with the little space buns lately are really popular, and every time I see that, I'm like, I bet that would feel like really good phantom ears.
Buns are racist, according to the fans of Animal Crossing.
That's right. Never forget.
Like she's talking about like this is like the new popular thing. And it's like I said, they're just like just absorbing all popular culture thing that they immediately see in front of them and just stapling that onto them. She described it as hacking it into your personality or your life.
Phantom ears. As if you can simulate the feeling of having ears on top of your head. It's just, I don't know. It's really strange. Biohacking. And like I said, this is because they don't have surgery options yet.
I don't know. I just feel like these people realized that they were empty and vapid people who don't actually do anything. And so they just wanted to find stuff to fill their life with. Maybe they are just like legitimate narcissists, and this is the way to cope with the fact that they are narcissists, and they want to constantly feel validated because if they have such a strong sense of narcissism. But I don't like. I'm an armchair psychologist here, right? I'm really not qualified to speak on these people's mental derangements. But there's something wrong with the three of these people. I'm sorry.
And what's funny is we're really only hearing two of them because the other one is stuck in chat. So we're getting a very deep dive into two of their psychologies. And they're just both very messed. They agree on everything, by the way. No matter how crazy it is.
Of course.
Oh. Let's just get through this.
Yep.
How much more we got to go?
Give that name some ear impression. Just different things like that. Trans being a medical thing. That's not so much in this panel, I don't think. Not necessarily because there's not medical pieces that play into it, but just more because that's not what this panel is about.
It's also not an option.
Okay, so we ready to roll past Paul?
I won't dare bring up trans as a medical issue because that would shatter the fragile worldview that I have just created. This would immediately destroy that, and I am not ready to face that reality. So we're not going to talk about that. That's not what this panel is about, and we're not even going to slightly address that.
Indeed. Just dodge that bullet.
Positive affirmations.
Yes.
And this is our last slide, which is just to say, try it out.
So this slide is boring. They just talk about, you should try out pronouns, and here's a website where you can type in pronouns, and then it'll fill in passages with your new pronouns, so you feel it out. So that's really it at this point. If we could process our emotions for a moment, because I think we've all felt a lot going through this.
That's my emotions.
All the sing furries?
No, it was
the
man having an aneurysm.
Yeah, I think my general feelings are very diluted, very self-serving. It's appropriating a lot of concepts from trans that it's just not appropriate. It's very insensitive. It's very problematic. And yeah, watching it the second time through, because I watched the whole thing on my drive to work this morning. Now listening to it again, I think, and just with commentary, I realized that it really is worse than I initially thought. Some really troublesome implications here.
Honestly, it all just seems like really vapid narcissism. Delusional, vapid narcissism.
I mean, these people are definitely delusional. I don't know. I really don't know what else to say on it. Like I said, this is not really something that I've personally ever really interacted with, and I don't know what these people are suffering from. But it really, it is like the animals said, peace be upon him, that these all this shit is just a fad to these guys. They're just taking this stuff and just putting it and just plastering it onto themselves with no regard for what it is or the significance of it. It's just a sticker.
This was a little bit more insane than anything I've ever had to deal with. Well, no, this isn't the craziest shit I've ever had to deal with, unfortunately. But it does feel familiar having a bunch of people together, deluding themselves into believing a single thing. I've had a lot of I think a lot of this stems from the division fundamentally in society, that we're able to have these little bitty echo chambers of people constantly reinforcing our thoughts and ideas. And it speaks to a wider problem of just a separation that everybody has from each other. I don't think this. I think all these people would probably be, partly bullied, but just pushed into being more normal if they didn't have like these online spaces where they could just constantly reinforce their own thoughts and beliefs that are so weird and out there. I don't know.
I think I agree. The internet has caused some interesting phenomena.
I will give them this, if nothing else. This was not as bad as the zoo file video.
Yeah, no, like I said, no zoophilia anywhere in there. In fact, I think both of them are married. I didn't hear the female one is married too. I didn't realize that my first watch.
I was worried about it at first, but like after diving into it, I don't think they would have. I don't think any of these people would have ever legitimately probably gone for something like that. I think despite their language, they wouldn't dare like even consider actually mating with like something that is not a human.
Yeah, I think they seem well-meaning.
It's just like this to me is just like it does like it's just like watching the trendy kids just like go to Hot Topic and buy all of the Banana Republic shit, and then like the next week they walk in and they're wearing all of that stupid fucking like pseudo goth emo shit because they don't have anything actually interesting about their dumb vapid lives. They're just following all of the trends. That's what this feels like to me.
The most shocking. Yeah, and it's shocking that they're like in their late 20s and early 30s. These are grown adults still kind of pandering this very floaty, very uncriticized conception of reality. And it's just not deep. Like the whole presentation was 40 minutes, but what did they get to?
They weren't really talking about anything substantial.
Yeah, it was all just very surface level.
Not even the surface of the surface wasn't even scratched. They basically talked about, I like a certain animal, and I like to pretend to be a certain animal or take on aspects of it because it makes me feel good. I like the animal because it makes me feel good, and it makes me feel good to like the animal. It's just a loop.
Well, out of things to say. I don't know about anybody else.
I'm at a loss for words.
Yeah, that was kind of a doozy, wasn't it? But educational, I think.
Again, it's not nearly as bad as the zoo one, thankfully. I'm impressed that like this one managed to on some level offend me as well, because I don't know, it's disgusting seeing just like blatant manipulation in front of your face like this.
Yeah, and I keep thinking about the teens and the preteens in that audience. Because there's got to be the furry fandom and the Otherkin fandom trends young.
Increasingly, at least in the last several years.
Well, and that's the thing that I'm worried about, is that like, when I was in the starting to get into the furry fandom and stuff, I was thankfully a bit older when I started really engaging with the rest of them, because I was just a perpetual lurker outside of that. But hearing horror stories of people who are in the furry fandom get like, groomed into being gay when they weren't gay. There was just like some horny 14-year-old who wanted to kind of explore themselves, and like they meet these men online who are actually, or who they're actually men, but they're pretending to be like women, and then like they just subtly try to change these young impressionable 14-year-olds minds enough to be like, oh well, you could actually be gay. Actually, you don't know that, and then they're like, well, and then they've managed to break those mental barriers down enough to then be like, oh well, maybe you actually want to be gay with me, and like I worry about the amount of that story that's going to increase, because before it was pretty small. Like there was it wasn't like it was heard about, but it wasn't really like a big problem. But as this fandom and stuff gets bigger and bigger, and as this stuff, I'm a little bit worried because I'm noticing that it seems like the furry fandom is starting to trend towards the mainstream, and I shudder to think what kind of damage that will do to not only the larger mainstream environment, but also the kids who are growing up young and impressionable.
I think that the furry fandom, I don't think that it will become completely mainstream in the immediate future, just because of all the fucked up shit you find among people in the furry fandom. Because there's just so much garbage and so many just awful people.
Yeah, it is known as the hell, or the realm of wanted degeneracy and hedonism. And the only reason, like, I wouldn't think like, oh, that won't happen within our lifetime. The only reason I'm thinking that now is because, like, I don't know, like it does seem like to me that we're starting the trend towards wanted hedonism in a more general context. And, you guys
younger and younger age.
Yeah, you guys did the whole video about the Pride Parade stuff, didn't you?
Yes, and drag kids.
That stuff worries me. Yeah, that stuff worries me though, because like it means that this kind of stuff is going to bleed into more and more circles as a result. Because it will be underground, then it will be like the off kind of subculture thing. I don't know. It concerns me.
How it used to be they sort of subtly pressure young people into homosexuality, and I think I would see that now as the trans thing. And we even saw it in adults, like 2 non-binary adults get with a single adult female and convince her that she is also non-binary. Like, I think we're going to see a lot of that.
Well, and the other thing too is that, like, right now, it's like the trans stuff, but like the problem is like because I know enough about the furry circle, and like again, I guess like maybe I'm doom-mongering too much here, but like I worry about this stuff getting in the hands of kids that it really shouldn't be in the hands of, because I don't think the furry community is really something that like somebody who's particularly young should be involved in. When I see like the pictures online of like the obvious 8-year-olds in fursuits with the like the signs that say free hugs, like that disgusts and disturbs me. But I don't know. I mean, to be fair, this video isn't that,
but it does summon up those thoughts a lot.
It worries me.
There's social dynamics at play and complex. Well, I think we've said probably enough. I think we're nearing 4 hours of footage now.
I'm sorry if I controlled the conversations. I feel like I gab a lot.
It's all good. You said a lot of good stuff, so I'm not complaining.
What? Any outros? Or are we just
outros? How about just a goodbye, boys?
Kill me.
Goodbye, boys.
Goodbye, boys.
No, goodbye, all y'all.
I honestly thought I was just gonna end it with kill me.